Chapter 972. After Ji Tianxing finished speaking, everyone was stunned. Shi Zhongjian was the first to react. He quickly nodded and said, "Good. Young Master Ji's idea is great. This is the best of both worlds." In fact, he did not know if Ji Tianxing's idea was feasible or not. He did not even know where the safe and peaceful place Ji Tianxing mentioned was. However, as long as Ji Tianxing mentioned the idea, he would support and agree. The Jinshan king's family of three was silent. They frowned and pondered. Their eyes revealed hesitation. When Ji Tianxing saw the Jinshan king's hesitation, he continued, "Jinshan king, to tell you the truth, I am the Tianshan region lord appointed by the imperial court of the human race. I control a region. In addition, I am the prince of the imperial palace, the top martial holy land in the Tianshan land. In the imperial palace, I also have my own palace and territory. It is a cultivation holy land with abundant resources. As long as you give me the divine mountain, I will arrange everything for you. You will not have any worries. Whether you go to my fief, the Tianshan region, or the imperial palace, there will be no problem." The Jinshan king frowned and murmured, "The domain lord appointed by the imperial court of the human race? The prince of the imperial palace?" He had never left the southern desolate swamp and had never come into contact with the outside world. Therefore, he didn't know what the words domain lord and emperor's son meant. However, he could tell that Ji Tianxing was definitely a genius with a noble status and outstanding talent. Even Shi Zhongjian, who looked simple, was not an ordinary person. The Jinshan king pondered for a long time. Then he looked at Ji Tianxing seriously and said in a serious tone, "Young Master Ji, thank you very much for your good intentions. However, I cannot agree to this. No matter what choice we make, we will have to submit to you and become your people. We will be bound and controlled by you. We, the Earth Spirit clan, love peace and freedom. We will not submit to others easily. We will not become their vassals and slaves." Ji Tianxing quickly waved his hand and explained solemnly, "Jinshan king, you misunderstood. I will provide you with a peaceful and stable place for you to live and reproduce. I will do my best to take care of you, but I will never enslave or exploit you. I will treat you as my friends, not my people and slaves." The Jinshan king stared at Jiunshu with sparkling eyes and said in a serious tone, "Young Master Ji, can you promise to keep your word?" Ji Tianxing nodded, raised his hand towards the sky and said seriously, "I can swear to the heavens that I will never bully or enslave the Earth Spirit race. I will definitely see the Earth Spirit race as my friends." Seeing his solemn tone, the Jinshan king and Ida heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy stone had been lifted from their hearts. Ji Tianxing smiled kindly and asked, "Jinshan king, can you agree to my conditions now?" "No, this is not enough." The Jinshan king shook his head, clenched his dark golden hammer, and said in a serious tone, "In the great swamp of the southern wasteland, no matter what race you are, strength is everything. I am the strongest warrior of my clan. You have to defeat me and prove that you are strong enough. Only then can we believe that you are qualified to protect my clan." Shi Zhongjian thought that the two sides were about to reach an agreement. Hearing the Jinshan king's words, he was like a deflated balloon. He said helplessly, "Sai, after all this, you two still want to fight? Jinshan king, you're being too unkind. You are older than young Master Ji, and you are a few levels higher than him. Do you still want to fight? You want to fight, so you want young Master Ji to back off, right?" Ai Luo was also nervous. He grabbed the Jinshan king's arm and begged, "Father, please don't fight with young Master Ji. You are a second-level soul refining realm warrior, while young Master Ji is only at Sky Origin Realm. Aren't you bullying him? This is not fair." The Jinshan king was also embarrassed, but he said to Ai Luo with a straight face, "Ai Luo, I have to decide the fate of thousands of people in my clan. I have to do this." After that, he looked at Ji Tianxing and said in a serious tone, "Young Master Ji, I am not bullying you, but I have the fate of my clan on my shoulders. I cannot afford to make any mistakes." Everyone felt that this was not fair, so they tried to persuade the Jinshan king. However, Ji Tianxing thought about it and nodded. He said in a serious tone, "Jinshan king, You are right. In the world of martial arts, strength is everything. Not only in the great swamp of the southern wasteland, but everywhere else is the same. Only the strong can gain respect and power. This is the universal law in the world of martial arts. I agree to fight with you. As long as I can defeat you, you will have to hand over the sacred mountain and leave the great swamp with me. The Jinshan king saw that Ji Yunshu had agreed, so he suddenly felt respect for Ji Yunshu. He cupped his hands and said, "Young Master Ji, you are indeed a top genius. You are very confident and courageous. However, I have to remind you that I have been cultivating for 80 years. I have reached the second level of the soul refining stage. Also, I have cultivated the 1,000 hammer refinement secret art. I am much more powerful than other cultivators in the same level. Are you sure you want to challenge me?" The Jinshan king's tone was very humble. He was very respectful and friendly to Ji Tianxing. However, his words revealed the dignity and confidence of a soul-refining stage cultivator. Shi Zhongjian, Ai Luo, and Queen Ida all had mixed feelings. They could guess the result of the fight. The result was obvious. Ji Tianxing was only at the 9th level of Sky Origin stage. How could he defeat the Jinshan king? A 9th level Sky Origin stage cultivator defeating a 2nd level soul refining stage cultivator? Such a thing had never happened in the history of martial arts. Unless Ji Tianxing could create a miracle, an unprecedented miracle. Everyone's eyes fell on Ji Tianxing. They all wanted to persuade him to give up. However, Ji Tianxing looked at the Jinshan king firmly. He nodded and said, "Jinshan king, maybe you don't know what the king's mansion means. You have never heard of my name, Ji Tianxing. However, I want to tell you that I, Ji Tianxing, am the synonym of miracles. Today is no exception. I will continue to create miracles. I will make you and the Earth Spirit Clan's people follow me and leave the great swamp of the southern wasteland." His words were full of confidence. It even seemed a little arrogant. However, his words and actions revealed the dignity of looking down on the common people. His unquestionable dominance was not disgusting. Even Shi Zhongjian, Queen Ida, and Ai Luo were shocked by his imposing manner. The three of them looked at him with expectation. They couldn't wait to see his performance. The Jinshan king also stopped smiling. His face became serious. He said in a serious tone, "Good. Young Master Ji's demeanor is indeed admirable. Since you are so confident, let's have a good fight." Chapter 973. Swoosh. Swoosh. Ji Tianxing and Jinshan king left the sacred mountain and flew up into the sky. The two of them arrived at the Sea of Clouds and stood 1,000 meters away from each other. They stared at each other with strong battle intent. Shi Zhongjian, Ida, and Ai Luo also flew into the Sea of Clouds and watched the battle from afar. After a while, Ji Tianxing and Jinshan king's aura had reached its peak. Their strength had also reached its peak. Jinshan king was the first to speak. He said in a serious tone, "Young Master Ji, you are a young man and a guest from afar. After you..." Ji Tianxing did not beat around the bush. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Jinshan king. If that's the case, I won't hold back. Take this. Golden slash." He formed a mysterious seal with his hands and released an endless amount of golden light. It formed a giant golden sword that was 100 meters long. It slashed toward Jinshan king with unstoppable power. The power of this slash had surpassed the ethereal origin stage and reached the level of a soul refining stage cultivator. The giant sword tore the sky apart and released sword intent that covered an area of 10 miles. The air and clouds in the area immediately dissipated. Only the dazzling giant sword and the grim-faced Jinshan king were left in the world. Just in time, Jinshan king shouted in a heroic tone. He held the dark golden hammer with both hands and used his secret skill. Sky-shaking hammer. He raised the dark golden hammer with both hands and smashed it toward Golden Slash with all his strength. It was a simple move. There was no flashy light or scene. However, when the dark golden hammer was raised high, it formed a huge shadow of a hammer that was as large as a palace. It exploded with power that could crush everything and hit Golden Slash. Boom! Amidst a dull explosion, the metal emperor's slash crumbled on the spot, exploding into fragments that filled the air. Just like that, Ji Tianxing's sword technique was defeated by the Jinshan king. The shadow of the hammer did not lose its power. It smashed down from the sky to the ground and destroyed a mountain. The Jinshan king looked at Ji Tianxing in a dignified manner and shouted, "Young Master Ji, I'm about to make my move." Sky-shaking hammer. The Golden Mountain King let out a low roar. He held the dark golden hammer with both hands and smashed it towards Ji Tianxing from below. Immediately, the dark golden warhammer brought about a sky full of golden hammer shadows, drowning his figure like a torrential downpour. Ji Tianxing could feel that the hammer shadows in the sky were not illusions. They all contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. He didn't dare to underestimate his opponent and immediately folded his golden wings. Golden rock wings. Boom 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 boom. In the next moment, countless dark golden hammer shadows smashed into the pair of golden wings, producing a series of dull thuds. Ji Tianxing was immediately sent flying, tumbling 10 miles away. The Golden Mountain King took the opportunity to attack again. He swung his dark golden warhammer from the top right to the bottom left. Sky-shattering hammer. The dark golden warhammer exploded with a power that could destroy everything. Then, it condensed into a huge hammer shadow that was as big as a mountain. It fell from the sky and smashed towards Ji Tianxing. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing hurriedly took out the soul-reaping bell. He activated this magic treasure and smashed it toward Jinshan King. The soul-reaping bell instantly expanded thousands of times and became as big as a palace. It carried a black deathly chill as it struck the dark golden warhammer with a bang. The sound of the collision between the two magic treasures reverberated through the air for hundreds of kilometers, reverberating intensely in the sky. The soul-reaping bell trembled violently and made a series of buzzing sounds. It was knocked back. The dark golden hammer was also knocked back. The shadow of the hammer was also smashed. The two of them were evenly matched. Neither of them had the upper hand. However, Ji Tianxing took the initiative and attacked without hesitation. Thunder! He suddenly opened the third eye on his forehead and released an endless amount of lightning energy. It condensed into a blue lightning beam and blasted toward the Golden Mountain King. Jinshan King knew that he could not dodge the thunder light beam. He hurriedly activated his protective divine art to resist the power of the thunder. Jinshan Protective Shield. He channeled all the power he had accumulated throughout his life, and his entire body surged with a monstrous golden light that condensed into a gigantic shield. Kaboom! The thunder light beam hit the golden shield and shattered it. The Golden Mountain King was sent flying back. His grayish-brown skin was charred black like charcoal. He flew for 10 miles before he could stand firmly in the sky. Cough, cough. He coughed violently and black smoke rose from his body. He looked at Ji Tianxing in a sorry state and shouted, "Young Master Ji, I've underestimated you. I didn't expect you to be able to control the power of thunder. I'm going to go all out. Be careful." As soon as he finished speaking, he gripped the dark gold warhammer with both hands and charged towards Ji Tianxing. He leaped high into the air and smashed down with the warhammer. Sky Destroyer Hammer. Ji Tianxing wasn't careless either. He unleashed all of his potential without holding anything back and raised his left palm to slap out. Sky Burning Palm. Red fire gushed out of his palm and formed a giant flaming palm that blotted out the sky. He slammed it toward Jinshan King. In the next instant, the burning sky palm fiercely collided with the dark golden hammer shadow that was as large as a mountain, and a loud bang that shook the heavens exploded out. The dark golden hammer and the flaming palm collapsed at the same time. Red fire burst out and mixed with golden fragments, spreading in all directions. The terrifying shockwave swept through the area within a radius of dozens of miles, sweeping the sky clean. Not even a wisp of cloud was left. Fortunately, Shizhong, Ida, and Ai Luo were far away. They were only pushed back by the shockwave and were not injured. If the three of them were closer, they would be seriously injured even if they were not killed by the shockwave. Ji Tianxing and Jinshan King were pushed back dozens of miles. Neither of them had the upper hand. They were gasping for breath with pale faces. Blood was coming out from the corners of their mouths. Jinshan King was not angry at all. Instead, he was excited. He patted his chest and laughed loudly. "Ha! This is great. It has been a long time since I had such a good fight with someone. Lord Ji, you are only in the 9th level of Sky Origin stage, yet you have such terrifying fighting power. This is rare. I am from the Earth Spirit clan. I was born with iron skin. My defense is superb. Even a cultivator in the 3rd level of the soul refining stage can't hurt me. But you actually fought to a draw with Little King and even injured him. This is simply too inconceivable." Again. He rushed toward Ji Tianxing again. He held the dark golden hammer and smashed it down with all his strength. Earthly fire, 1,000 hammer refinement. As he roared, dozens of lava pillars rose up from the ground. They violently shot up to the sky and blasted toward Ji Tianxing. The dark golden warhammer also burst forth with destructive power. It released thousands of dark golden warhammer shadows, which fell from the sky and smashed towards Ji Tianxing. Chapter 974. Without a doubt, the Jinshan King was having a good time and had used his trump card. Shi Zhongjian, Ida, and AI Luo immediately revealed worried expressions when they saw the sky full of hammer shadows and lava pillars attacking Ji Tianxing from both sides. "Be careful, young Master Ji. Royal Father, quickly stop. You and young Master Ji are just sparring. Why do you have to fight so hard?" However, the Jinshan King realized that things were not going well and regretted it. It was impossible for him to stop now. Everyone's hearts tightened as they were extremely worried. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing did not panic. He was as calm as usual. The more dangerous the situation was, the calmer he became. Pure Heart Dharma Eye. He activated the Pure Heart Demon Suppression Art and used the Pure Heart Dharma Eye. His eyes turned golden and mysterious. His eyes were fixed on the dark golden hammer shadow descending from the sky and the magma pillars surging from the ground. He immediately saw the Golden Mountain King's attack trajectory. At the same time, his body flashed and turned into a golden stream of light. He dashed toward the hammer shadows fearlessly. It was as if he had taken the initiative to meet the hammer shadows head-on, allowing them to bombard him. The Jinshan King, his family, and Shi Zhongjian all widened their eyes in shock. Deep worry was written all over their faces. "Young Master Ji, no. Calm down." However, just as the 4 of them were exclaiming in surprise, Ji Tianxing's figure was already drowned by the hammer shadows that filled the sky. Everyone was in despair. They could not help but close their eyes. They could not bear to see him being smashed into pieces by the dark golden hammers. However, the tragic scene that everyone expected did not happen. There was no dull sound of collision. On the contrary, they saw an unbelievable scene. Ji Tianxing's figure actually passed through the dark golden hammer shadows that filled the sky. He was as nimble as a ghost and unfathomable. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Within a breath, his body flashed more than 10 times. He passed through dozens of hammer shadows and arrived in front of the Jinshan King. He successfully dodged all the hammer shadows and neutralized the Jinshan King's attack in an unbelievable way. There was no doubt that this was the sword soul combat technique that he created himself. Everyone was dumbfounded. They stared at him with their mouths agape, unable to believe that this was real. At the same time, Ji Tianxing activated his sword heart and attacked the Jinshan King. Sword of Judgment. The golden sword heart flew out of his body and turned into a 100-meter-long golden sword. It exploded with destructive power and struck the Golden Mountain King. Boom! Golden light splashed in all directions, and a loud noise shook the heavens. Before the Gold Mountain King realized what was going on, he was drowned by the golden sword light and was sent flying for over 10 miles. While he was still in midair, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face also turned ashen and dim. Fortunately, he had blocked most of the power with his dark gold warhammer. He had only suffered some internal injuries. If not for that, he would have been smashed into pieces by the Sword of Judgment. Shwa! The Jinshan King drew an arc in the sky and fell to the ground powerlessly. At this time, Ji Tianxing had already retrieved the Sword of Judgment. His figure flashed as he chased after the Golden Mountain King. He waved his hand and struck out a giant golden palm, grabbing the Jinshan King in the palm. Shwa! He pulled the Jinshan King back and saved him from falling to the ground. Cough, cough. The Jinshan King coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of blood. He seemed to be in a sorry state and his aura was very weak. Shi Zhongjian, Ida, and Ai Luo looked at this scene with their mouths agape. It took them a long time to recover. How could this be? How is this possible? Young Master Ji won? Oh my God! How did he do it? The three of them looked at Ji Tianxing in disbelief and could not help but exclaim. Then Ji Tianxing supported the severely injured Jinshan King and flew back to the three of them. Ida and Ai Luo quickly went up and supported the Jinshan King on both sides. They asked with concern, "Father, how are your injuries? Are you all right?" "Sai, you battle maniac. You can't stop once you start fighting." The Jinshan King waved his hand, indicating that the mother and son did not need to support him. He put away his dark golden war hammer and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. He cupped his hands at Ji Tianxing and said, "Young Master Ji, you are indeed a young hero. You are worthy of being called a top genius. You are so young and yet you have such extraordinary combat strength. I wonder how terrifying your strength will be when you reach the soul refining stage in the future. This humble king has lost without shame. This humble king is sincerely convinced." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said calmly, "Jinshan King, thank you for letting me win." After that, he took out a few healing elixirs from his interspatial ring and handed them to the Jinshan King. "Jinshan King, I apologize for offending you just now. Here are a few healing elixirs. Take them quickly." The Jinshan King shook his head and patted his chest. "Thank you for your kindness, young Master Ji. But this humble king does not need it. With this humble king's physique, this small injury will be healed in a few days." Since the Jinshan King did not want to accept the elixirs, Ji Tianxing did not force him. He put the elixirs back into his interspatial ring. The Jinshan King circulated his energy and adjusted his breathing for a while. Chapter 975. Refining the broken sword will take some effort? Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and asked doubtfully, "Burial of heaven, do you mean to settle them in the divine sword?" "That's right." Burial of Heaven said in a low voice, "There is a small world inside the divine sword that can settle thousands of Earth Spirit clan people. However, the divine sword is broken. I wonder if the small world inside the sword has collapsed?" Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and continued to ask, "If the small world inside the divine sword is broken, can you repair it, Burial of Heaven?" "I should be able to. However, I need to see how broken the divine sword is first," Burial of Heaven answered seriously. "All right." Ji Tianxing nodded and said expectantly, "Then let's wait patiently. After the Earth Spirit clan has moved out of the Divine Mountain, you can refine it." With that, he flew towards the Divine Mountain and landed on its peak. Shi Zhongjian was standing on the peak. When he saw Ji Tianxing arrive, he smiled and said, "Young Master Ji, the Golden Mountain King has already announced the news. He is discussing it with the elders in the palace. This news is a bit sudden for the Earth Spirit clan people. They need some time. You have to wait patiently." Ji Tianxing was mentally prepared. He nodded and said, "It's fine. I believe the Golden Mountain King will take care of it." As expected, 2 hours later, the originally noisy palace hall gradually regained its silence. The elders who were agitated and opposed to the decision were finally persuaded by the Golden Mountain King and accepted the fact. Then, the elders and guards began to pass on the Golden Mountain King's order to evacuate the Earth Spirit clan people from the Divine Mountain. Although the people didn't understand, they were extremely unwilling to leave their homes that they had lived in for many years. However, the Earth Spirit clan people were simple and kind. They didn't dare to disagree with the orders and decisions of the tribe king. They packed their bags, took their belongings, and left their homes and homes. They left the Divine Mountain one after another. Ji Tianxing set up a huge defensive formation in the forest below the Divine Mountain to protect the Earth Spirit clan people. Within half a day, More than 5,000 Earth Spirit commoners had left the Divine Mountain and entered the defensive formation to rest and wait. By nightfall, everyone had left the Divine Mountain. The Jinshan King arrived at the peak of the mountain and reported the situation to Ji Tianxing. Young Master Ji, all of our people have left the Divine Mountain. Please take back the Divine Mountain. Thank you, Jinshan King. Ji Tianxing bowed to him to express his gratitude. Then, he stretched out his right palm and activated the black vortex in his palm. Shwa! The vortex flew out of his palm and turned into a huge black hole. It descended from the sky and enveloped the Divine Mountain. In the blink of an eye, the entire Divine Mountain was completely enveloped by the black hole. Although the sacred mountain was a broken sword, it still possessed a certain amount of power and spirituality. Sensing the call of the burial of heaven, Mount Sumeru passed through the black hole and flew into Kenshin's tomb. When Ji Tianxing retrieved the mysterious black hole, the entire mountain had disappeared, leaving behind only a huge crater. Thousands of Earth Spirit clansmen watched the godly mountain disappear, their faces filled with reluctance. Ji Tianxing didn't waste any time. After retrieving the Divine Mountain, he summoned the little black dragon and sat on its back. He silently channeled his energy, and his soul and consciousness entered the Kenshin's tomb. Shwa! His soul condensed into a translucent person and arrived at the dark and cold wasteland. The scene in front of him was the same as before. The sky-piercing sword steel stood on the ground, and 9 tombstones stood on both sides. Apart from that, there was also the 1,000-foot-tall Divine Mountain that stood on the wasteland. Ji Tianxing looked up at the sky-piercing sword steel and calmly said, "Burial of heaven, begin as soon as possible." The burial of heaven didn't answer. The sky-piercing sword steel surged with spiritual light and released a powerful aura. Shwa! In the blink of an eye, the sky-piercing sword steel disappeared into thin air and turned into a mysterious black light that flew toward the majestic Divine Mountain. That mysterious black light was the soul of the burial of heaven. It had been stored in the sky-piercing sword steel for so long. Now, it finally found the body of the divine sword and didn't need to rely on the sky-piercing sword steel. After the burial of heaven entered the Divine Mountain, it quickly merged with the Divine Mountain. Then, the Divine Mountain began to change. It quickly shrank. The rocks, soil, and plants on the surface of the Divine Mountain also quickly peeled off and dissipated. After a full 15 minutes, the towering Divine Mountain finally shrank to its limit. The Divine Mountain actually turned into a broken sword about half a meter long. It flew in front of Ji Tianxing and floated in the air. This was an ancient broken sword. Its shape was extremely simple and solemn, and it revealed a heavy and solemn aura. The sword hilt was mottled and covered in cracks and gaps. The divine inscriptions and diagrams that were originally engraved on it were damaged beyond recognition. The sword guard connected to the hilt was oval-shaped. It was unknown what material it was made of. It was as black as ink and as cold as ice. A circle of divine inscriptions was engraved on the sword guard. In the middle of it were 2 ancient characters. Burial of heaven. At the 2 ends of the sword guard were 2 roaring dragon heads. Unfortunately, the originally lifelike dragon heads were mostly damaged and covered in cracks. The sword guard was connected to the sword blade. The sword blade was pitch black and mottled. It was at least 2 inches wide. Although the sword blade was covered in cracks and gaps, it was still straight and upright. This was an imperial sword filled with the majesty of an emperor. It was neither as narrow as an ordinary sword, nor as wide and heavy as a heavy sword. Ji Tianxing could deeply feel that the divine sword burial of heaven contained a domineering aura that looked down on the 9 heavens and dominated the universe. If the divine weapons in the world were divided into different grades, the divine sword burial of heaven would definitely be the emperor of all swords. It was the absolute leader and emperor. Unfortunately, this divine sword was already broken. A few cracks appeared at the fracture and extended to the entire sword. The broken sword was severely damaged. It looked like it could not be used at all. It seemed like it would shatter if used with any force. The sword blade was only about a foot long. Together with the guard and hilt, it was only half a meter long. Rather than calling it a divine sword, It was more like a short sword. Moreover, it was a blunt weapon without a blade or a tip. Sigh. The damage is too severe. It's almost like scrap metal. It's already very lucky that it hasn't shattered yet. From within the broken sword came the sigh of burial of heaven. It was full of sorrow and complex emotions. Ji Tianxing understood its feelings. His expression was also very heavy. He slowly reached out his right hand and grasped the hilt of the broken sword. He said with a serious expression, "Burial of heaven, don't worry. I will do my best to help you reforge the sword. One day, the divine sword Burial of Heaven will be completely restored. It will regain its former majesty and domineering aura, causing the gods to fear it and the heavens to tremble." Burial of Heaven felt his determination. It also shouted in a dignified tone, "That's right. The day the broken sword is reforged is the day I return from Burial of Heaven." Chapter 976. Ji Tianxing and Burial of Heaven were both excited and full of expectations. Although it was very difficult to reforge the sword and there was still a long way to go, they were confident. They firmly believed that they would not have to wait too long for that day to come. After a while, Burial of Heaven calmed down and said with a voice full of vicissitudes, "Tianxing, the broken sword is too damaged and cannot be used for the time being. The sword's small world is also broken and cannot be inhabited. Don't you have 2 pieces of stellar divine gold? Give me those 2 pieces of stellar divine gold. I need 2 days to repair the sword and its small world." Ji Tianxing was startled and asked with surprise, "Burial of Heaven, didn't you say that I could only use the stellar divine gold to help you reforge the sword when I am strong enough? You can already use the stellar divine gold to repair the sword now? Do you need my help?" Burial of Heaven said with a bleak voice, "With my current strength, refining the stellar divine gold to repair the sword will definitely damage my vitality. I will need to sleep for a long time to recover. But I have no other choice. After I repair the sword and the small world, you can help the earth spirit race settle down. The broken sword can also recover some of its strength and help you in battle. Its power will definitely surpass ordinary magic treasures." Hearing it say so, Ji Tianxing nodded with a serious face and said, "Okay, then I will do as you say. After it is done, I will think of a way to help you recover your vitality." Then, his soul consciousness left Kenshin's tomb and returned to his body. The little black dragon quietly floated in the sky while he sat on its back. The Golden Mountain King, Ida, Ai Luo, and Shi Zhongjian surrounded him and looked at him with concern. Seeing him open his eyes, the Golden Mountain King quickly asked, "Young Master Ji, how is the situation? How are you going to settle my people and take them out of the southern wasteland Great Swamp?" Ji Tianxing slightly nodded and comforted him, "Don't worry, Golden Mountain King. I have already prepared. Please let everyone wait here patiently for 2 days. When the time comes, I will let everyone enter the small world of the sword. It will be absolutely safe there and no one will disturb you." When the Jinshan King heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief and said, "That's great. Who would have thought that young Master Ji would have such means? There was even a small world inside the divine sword. In the past, our people lived on the divine mountain. Now that we want to live in the divine sword, we just moved in from the outside. We still haven't left the divine mountain. I want to tell the people this news. They will definitely be very happy." After that, the Jinshan King bowed to Ji Tianxing and went to deliver the message. Chapter 977. In just 4 hours, more than 5,000 Earth Spirit people had all entered the small world of the sword. There were no other races in that strange world, nor were there any demons or giant beasts. Just as Ji Tianxing had said, that place was extremely safe. The Earth Spirit people could live and reproduce as much as they wanted, and would never be disturbed. Although the area of 1,000 miles was not too big, it was still a small world. To the Earth Spirit people, that was a world that completely belonged to them, and it was already very vast. Even if the resources in the small world were not enough, they would dry up in 3 to 5 months at most. However, Ji Tianxing had promised the Gold Mountain King that he would find a way to collect mineral resources and put them into the small world. Of course, he had provided the Earth Spirit people with a place to live, protected them, and provided them with mineral resources. This made the Gold Mountain King and the Earth Spirit people very grateful. The Gold Mountain King had also made up his mind that he would never let the Earth Spirit people be supported and become useless vassals. In the future, the Earth Spirit people would help Ji Tianxing wholeheartedly and try their best to help him become stronger and build a powerful force for him. In this way, the Earth Spirit people became Ji Tianxing's warriors, craftsmen, and builders. After the 5,000 Earth Spirit people entered the small world, they chose a place with good feng shui to live in from now on. Arrow and the elders led many craftsmen and started to build the city. Thousands of people also used their talents to control the earth and rocks, and built countless houses and buildings. They worked together to build a home. After settling the Earth Spirit people, Ji Tianxing was finally relieved and put the broken sword back into his body. He stood on the back of the little black dragon, looked at the dark night sky, and said to Shi Zhongjian beside him, "Lion, I've already achieved my goal in the southern wasteland Great Lake. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I can't continue to accompany you to explore those forbidden areas and ruins. Next, I have to leave the southern wasteland Great Lake to do something very important." He had already planned that after getting the divine sword of the burial of heaven, he would rush to the northern wasteland and find a way to rescue Yun Yao. Now that he had the broken sword, it was time for him to leave. Shi Zhongjian nodded and said with emotion, "Originally, this was my first time leaving the sect and seeing the outside world. Before I started my adventure, I had great ambitions. I imagined that after entering the great swamp of the southern wasteland, I would be able to explore all kinds of legendary ancient realms and dangerous lands. I've even set 3 targets, and I'm determined to explore them. Those 3 targets are all incomparably dangerous forbidden areas." Speaking of this, Shi Zhongjian laughed self-deprecatingly and shook his head gently. "However, I thought of everything too simply, so I paid the price of being covered in bruises. Young Master Ji, I'm very lucky to have met you. With your help and care, I was able to survive the danger and survive until now. Also, thank you for letting me know about the dangers of the outside world and the unfathomable nature of the human heart. To me, this is a valuable life experience. Although we didn't spend much time together, only a few days, I'll always remember these days. I'll always remember you and Sister Jiku." Hearing him say this, Ji Tianxing understood his meaning and asked, "You don't plan to continue exploring the southern wasteland Great Swamp? You also want to go back?" Shi Zhongjian nodded and said with a smile, "Yes. With my experience, and strength, it's not enough for me to explore the southern wasteland Great Swamp for the time being. We're only at the edge of the Great Swamp, and we've already encountered so many life and death dangers. If I continue to explore deeper, I'll definitely lose my life here. Therefore, I also want to leave the Great Swamp and return to the sect to recuperate. After I've recovered, I'll take my master and the elders to the southern wasteland Great Swamp again, and go to the evil dragon pool to find that azure dragon." Ji Tianxing had already guessed that he would do this, so he patted his shoulder with a smile. "Good, I wish you all the best and that you'll find that azure dragon soon." After that, Ji Tianxing rode the little black dragon and took Shi Zhongjian to the night sky and returned to the southern wasteland city. Time passed quickly. One day later, good news came from Jian Xiaoyan's small world. More than 5,000 Earth Spirit people, in just one day, built a solemn and imposing city with a radius of 20 miles. Ji Tianxing witnessed the Earth Spirit people's talent in construction, and his heart was filled with shock and disbelief. The Golden Mountain King wanted to name the city, so he asked for Chu Li's opinion. Ji Tianxing replied without hesitation that the new city would be called Peaceful Earth City, which meant that the Earth Spirit people would live and work in peace and contentment. The Golden Mountain King gladly accepted this name, and personally carved the 3 words Peaceful Earth City on the city gate. After that, the Earth Spirit people settled down in Peaceful Earth City, and began their normal lives and cultivation. Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian also hurried back to the southern wasteland city as fast as lightning. The journey was very peaceful, and they didn't encounter any more dangers. On the evening of the 8th day, the little black dragon carried them out of the southern wasteland Great Swamp, and returned to the outskirts of the southern wasteland city. Under the setting sun, the little black dragon stopped in the sky. Ji Tianxing and Shi Zhongjian stood on the little black dragon's back, facing each other, and were about to part ways here. Lion, after you go back, take care of your injuries, and be more vigilant in the future. Don't be silly anymore. We will part here today, take care of yourself. Ji Tianxing cupped his hands, and bid farewell to Shi Zhongjian. Shi Zhongjian also cupped his hands, and said with a smile, Young Master Ji, you and little sister Ji must also take care of yourselves. The mountains are high, and the rivers are far away. If fate wills it, we will meet again in the martial world. After that, he waved his hand at Ji Tianxing, turned around, and flew towards the southern wasteland city, laughing heartily as he left. Ji Tianxing stood on the little black dragon's back, and looked at his departing figure with a faint smile on his face. Hee, what an interesting guy. If fate wills it, perhaps we will meet again. The little black dragon nodded and asked, Old Ji, where are we going next? Back to the central continent? Before Ji Tianxing could answer, the voice of the burial of heaven entered their minds. No, there is no meaning in going back to the central continent now. Going to the northern wasteland is the same as going to death. Tianxing, go to the eastern sea water tribe. Ji Tianxing was startled and asked in confusion, Burial of heaven, we have no dealings with the eastern sea water tribe, what are we going there for? The burial of heaven explained in a serious tone, You have not reached the spirit refining realm, so you cannot enter the northern desert. Although the broken sword has been repaired, it is still not very powerful, and is only equivalent to a mid-grade soul-level magic treasure. You have to go to the eastern sea water tribe to find the two materials, boundless stone, and illusory feather ice gold. Only by further repairing the broken sword can you help me recover my vitality and make the broken sword even more powerful. When the time comes, you can even borrow the power of the broken sword to break through the shackles of the spirit refining realm and reach the spirit refining realm as soon as possible. After hearing the burial of heaven's explanation, Ji Tianxing finally understood the pros and cons and immediately nodded with a serious expression. I see, I understand. Chapter 978. Ji Tianxing only had two goals. To increase his strength and reach the soul-refining realm as soon as possible, then go to the northern desert to rescue Yunyao. He was now at the 9th layer of the sky origin stage. It would be very difficult for him to reach the soul-refining realm. That was the gap between ordinary cultivators and transcendent cultivators. It was an insurmountable gap, an almost unbreakable shackle. However, Burial of Heaven told him that as long as he went to the Eastern Seas water tribe to find the boundless stone and illusory feather ice gold, he could repair the broken sword and strengthen it. Most importantly, he could borrow the power of the broken sword to break through the shackles of the soul-refining realm. Therefore, Ji Tianxing listened to Burial of Heaven's advice and decided to go to the Eastern Sea. The little black dragon did not enter the southern desolate city. He turned around and flew to the east. The distance from the southern desolate city to the Eastern Sea was very far. Even with the little black dragon's strength and speed, it would still take 2 months. Although it was a long journey and Ji Tianxing was unfamiliar with the Eastern Sea. Since he had made a decision, he would not back down or hesitate. On the way, he used his spiritual sense to chat with the little black dragon. He asked, Little black dragon, do you remember the first time I met you? It was in our Ji clan's Yanqing Lake. The little black dragon nodded slightly and said in a low voice, Of course I remember. At that time, we had an agreement. You will help me find the dragon crystal and send me back to the Eastern Sea. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a smile, Yes. It has only been 2 years. I didn't expect to be able to fulfill my promise so soon. I have already found the dragon crystal for you. This time, I will send you back to the Eastern Sea. The little black dragon was silent for a moment, then asked tentatively, Old Ji, do you really want me to leave you? Ji Tianxing shook his head and smiled. If you want to stay by my side, of course I won't let you leave. However, if you want to go back to the Eastern Sea and reunite with your clansmen and loved ones, I will not stop you. The little black dragon fell silent for a moment before saying in a rather heavy voice, But I'm extremely unfamiliar with the Eastern Sea. I don't have any memories of the Eastern Sea. Ji Tianxing recalled for a moment before he chuckled and said, when I was in the Shenhui sect, I read the books in the study. One of the books recorded what happened back then. When the Shenhui sect obtained you, you were still a dragon egg. It was the experts of the Shenhui sect who spent a lot of effort to hatch you. You were born in the spirit beast garden of the Shenhui sect. How could you have any memories of the East Sea? So that's how it is. The little black dragon finally understood. Ji Tianxing asked it again, can you find your people, parents, and relatives? If I get close to them, will I be able to sense their bloodline? The little black dragon thought seriously for a while before shaking his head and helplessly saying, I also don't know where to go to find my parents and clansmen. Speaking of which, we've encountered quite a few flood dragons in the past 2 years, but none of them were black dragons. I also don't have any bloodline connection with them. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment, then analyzed, I've done some research in the past. Among the dragon races of the East Sea, black dragons are truly the rarest. The most revered are the golden dragons, followed by the silver dragons, azure dragons, and black dragons. The most common dragons are the water dragons, fire dragons, and earth dragons. Little black dragon, you don't need to worry. Once we reach the East Sea, we'll find a place to ask around and find out. The water race reigns supreme over the dragon race, so it shouldn't be hard to find information about the dragon race. The little black dragon was finally reassured by his words of comfort and continued on its journey. Ji Tianxing no longer chatted with it. He sat on its back and began to meditate in silence. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. The little black dragon left the southern continent and arrived at the easternmost part of the continent. The land came to an end here, connecting to an endless stretch of beach. The shore was covered in fine white sand. Wave after wave crashed against the shore tirelessly. To the humans and the water race, this was the border. The land was the territory of the humans while the sea was the territory of the East Sea's water race. There were many coastal cities and villages by the sea. Many humans lived in these cities, and the majority of them made a living by fishing and fishing for pearls. Of course, these fishermen could only move about in the shallow waters and did not dare to venture into the deep waters. The water race were naturally cold-blooded and arrogant. They rarely interacted with humans, and when they did, it was usually a conflict. Those who dared to venture into the deep waters were either extremely powerful experts or adventurers who were willing to risk their lives in search of treasures. If ordinary martial artists and commoners entered the deep waters, they would basically never return. When Ji Tianxing and the little black dragon reached the shore, they were in no hurry to enter the East Sea. He entered a coastal city called Blackstone City and temporarily stayed in an inn to rest and recuperate while gathering information. Blackstone City was an ancient city built from deep-sea reefs. This seaside city with a radius of 100 miles had a history of nearly 1,000 years. There were more than 800,000 people living in it. This city was the most prosperous main city on the East Sea border. Chapter 979. The Dongbao Pavilion's auction was held once every half a month. Today was not the day of the auction yet, so the Dongbao Pavilion was quiet and deserted. There were a few customers in the hall on the first floor. The second floor was for VIPs. Other than Ji Tianxing, there were no other customers. The deacon led him to the second floor and entered a soundproof private room that was protected by a formation. After the two of them sat down, the deacon poured a cup of tea for Ji Tianxing and asked with a smile, "Young master, how should I address you?" Ji Tianxing nodded slightly. "My surname is Ji." "Oh, young master Ji." The deacon cupped his fists and asked, "Young master Ji, what kind of information do you want to know?" "As long as I can answer, I will tell you the truth." Ji Tianxing said without hesitation, "I have never been to the East Sea. Please tell me more about the East Sea." The deacon understood and said, "The East Sea is vast and boundless. Within 100 miles from the shore is the shallow sea. This is the area where we humans can move around. The fishermen of the Black Rock City can only move around this area. They do not dare to enter the deep sea. The Imperial Court and the Imperial Court of the Sea have an agreement to respect each other and not disturb each other. Without the Imperial Court's permission, we are not allowed to enter each other's territory. Otherwise, we will be responsible for our own lives. In the East Sea, there were countless fish beasts and demons, as well as an inexhaustible supply of mineral resources. The water race lived in the underwater world. They had built countless cities, and each city was surrounded by a great formation. Tens of thousands of Sea Tribe cities are under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Court of the Sea Tribe. The Imperial Court of the Sea Tribe is located in the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm. It is said that it is a mysterious alternate space. It is like a small world hidden in the deepest part of the East Sea. However, ordinary people are not qualified to enter the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm. They do not know what it is like inside. After listening to the deacon's explanation, Ji Tianxing had a rough understanding of the East Sea Tribe and the Imperial Court of the Sea Tribe. He continued to ask, "Have you heard of the boundless stone and illusory feather ice gold?" The black deacon was taken aback. He frowned in confusion. Boundless stone and illusory feather ice gold? They sound very unfamiliar, like two powerful magical treasures? No, these are two top-notch precious materials. Ji Tianxing shook his head. The black-robed deacon fell silent. After a moment of careful thought, a look of sudden realization appeared on his face. I remember now. I have never heard of the boundless stone, but I have heard of the illusory feather ice gold. It is indeed a top-notch refining material. It was said that the illusory feather ice gold was produced in a forbidden area in the deepest part of the Eastern Sea and was extremely rare. The illusory feather ice gold contained unimaginable power and was a priceless treasure. Furthermore, the Imperial Court of the Aqua race even used the illusory feather ice gold to create an immortal soul-level magical treasure that could be called a divine artifact. Ji Tianxing saw that his words were reasonable and consistent with the theory of the burial of heaven, so he asked expectantly, "May I ask, how can I find the dreamy ice gold?" "You want the illusory feather ice gold?" The black deacon looked at him strangely. Ji Tianxing nodded. The black deacon hurriedly shook his head and said earnestly, "Young Master Ji, I advise you to give up on this idea. Legend has it that the illusory feather ice gold can only be produced once in 100 years. There are very few of them left in the world, and they are all in the Imperial Court of the Aqua race. It is a priceless treasure of the Aqua race. Unless you can kill your way into the Imperial Court of the Aqua race and snatch it from their treasury, you can forget about it." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was a little disappointed and his eyes dimmed. He frowned and thought for a moment before continuing, "Does the East Treasure Pavilion have a map of the Aqua race? Where is the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm?" The black deacon was even more shocked and asked in disbelief, "Young Master Ji, you want a map of the Aqua race? Are you really going to the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm and kill your way into the Imperial Court of the Aqua race?" Ji Tianxing waved his hand and said, "You have misunderstood. That is impossible. I just want to enter the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm and visit the Imperial Court of the Aqua race openly." The black deacon smiled bitterly and shook his head again. "Young Master Ji, you should give up on this idea. Ordinary people cannot enter the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm. This has nothing to do with strength. You must have a very high status. For example, the messenger sent by the Imperial Court of the Aqua race or the Divine General of the Aqua race. Oh, right. The Divine General of Wang Lin who is guarding the city is qualified to enter the 10,000 Dragon Strange realm. Young Master Ji, if you really want to go to the Imperial Court of the Aqua race, you can go to the Divine General's mansion in the West City and ask for his help. If you can ask for his help, you might be able to get what you want." Ji Tianxing nodded. "I see. Thank you for telling me." Then he took out 200 spiritual stones from his infinite space ring and gave them to the black deacon as a reward. The black deacon thanked him with a smile and accepted the spiritual stones. Ji Tianxing cupped his fists at him and took his leave. After leaving the East Treasure Pavilion, he walked along the main street and headed to the Divine General's mansion in the West City. In the Black Rock City, there were only two mansions that were the most prestigious. The first was the Divine General's mansion and the second was the Mayor's mansion. The human race had 4 divine generals who guarded the Middle Continent and the other major borders. Each divine general was a spirit refinement realm transcendent. Their status was second only to the three ancient clans. They were extremely prestigious figures. Ji Tianxing had already asked the black-robed deacon about the divine general guarding the Eastern Sea. His real name was Xiao Han, and his title was Divine General Dong Lin. Divine General Xiao Han was originally from the Middle Continent. He was born in a family of generals. His ancestors were all fierce generals under the imperial court. 160 years ago, Xiao Han was given the title of Divine General of Dong Lin. Since then, he had been guarding the Black Rock City. He led dozens of generals who had great achievements in battle and 800,000 elite soldiers to guard the East Sea border. There were only 50,000 elite soldiers outside the Black Rock City. The other 100,000 soldiers were scattered in various cities along the coast. In the Black Rock City, Divine General of Dong Lin was extremely prestigious. He was the spiritual leader of all the people. The people and fishermen not only made many statues of Divine General of Dong Lin, but they also pasted his portrait on their doors and fishing boats. They worshipped him as their guardian. When Ji Tianxing learned of these matters, he was also very curious about Divine General Dong Lin. Speaking of which, I've only heard of the title of Divine General. I've never seen one in person. I wonder who this Divine General of Dong Lin is. Will he be willing to help me? Filled with anticipation, he entered the West City and arrived at the gate of the Divine General's mansion. The Divine General's mansion was located at the end of a wide street. It was more than 1,000 acres in size. It was very grand and luxurious. There were 6 guards in silver armor standing guard at the vermilion and gold-plated gate. Chapter 980. Ji Tianxing walked to the entrance of the Divine General's estate and looked up at the plaque on the lintel. On the red plaque, there were the words, Dong Lin Divine General's Estate. The words were flamboyant and majestic. The door was wide open and there was a large screen wall in front of him. On the screen wall, there was a picture of a dragon coming out of the sea. It was lifelike and majestic. At this time, a silver-armored guard wearing a red tasseled helmet came in front of Ji Tianxing with his hand on his saber. This tall and sturdy young man was the guard captain of the Divine General's estate. He saw that Ji Tianxing's appearance was extraordinary and dignified, so he didn't dare to scold him. He asked in a neither servile nor overbearing tone, "Young master, may I ask what brings you here?" Ji Tianxing said expressionlessly, "I came to the Divine General's estate to see Divine General Dong Lin. May I ask if Divine General Dong Lin is in the estate?" The guard captain didn't answer his question and asked in a deep voice, "May I ask who you are? Why are you here to see the Divine General?" Ji Tianxing didn't change his expression and said in a dignified tone, "My surname is Tianxing. I'm here to see the Divine General. I have something important to ask." Tianxing? The guard captain was stunned and his eyes widened. He stared at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. After a while, he came back to his senses. His eyes lit up and he asked in an excited tone, "You are the genius prince, the one who was appointed as the Tianshan region lord by the imperial court?" Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianxing was also surprised and asked back, "That's right. You know me?" The guard captain saw that he nodded and became even more excited. He said excitedly, "Young Master Ji, although I don't know you, I've heard of your great name for a long time. Since a year ago, I've heard all kinds of legends about you and I've admired you a lot. I didn't expect that I would be so lucky to meet you in the Black Rock City of the Eastern Sea. You're indeed worthy of being called the #1 genius of our clan. You're even more spirited than the rumors say. How admirable." Obviously, the captain of the guards had long heard of Ji Tianxing's name and deeds, and even admired and worshipped him. To be able to see Ji Tianxing with his own eyes, the guard captain simply couldn't believe it. He was so excited that his heartbeat sped up several times. Ji Tianxing was also a little surprised. He didn't expect that his reputation would not only spread throughout the central continent, but even the cities of the East Sea would know about him. He nodded to the guard captain and said, "If the Divine General is in the mansion, please inform him that Imperial Prince Ji Tianxing is here to see the Divine General." The guard captain was stunned for a moment. He quickly suppressed his excitement and said with a troubled expression, "Young Master Ji, to tell you the truth, the Divine General is indeed in the mansion. However, the Divine General can't see you now. Please go back and come back in a few days." Ji Tianxing immediately frowned and asked in confusion, "Why can't he see me?" The guard captain hesitated for a moment before using his spiritual sense to explain, "Young Master Ji, this is a military secret of the Divine General's mansion. This subordinate can't reveal it. However, you're the #1 genius of our clan, and also the territory lord of the Tianshan region. You can be considered a colleague of the Divine General. Therefore, this subordinate will tell you this matter. However, you can't tell anyone else. Otherwise, this subordinate will be dealt with according to military law." Ji Tianxing nodded and patted his shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, I still understand this rule." The guard captain was flattered by the pat on the shoulder. He became a little emotional and quickly said, "Young Master Ji, the matter is like this. 1,000 miles south of the city, there is an ancient jade bay. This shallow sea area is rich in jade and icicle pearls. It's very rich in resources. The people and fishermen in the surrounding cities all year-round catch fish and pick up pearls in the ancient jade bay. It has always been peaceful. However, since a month ago, reefs and whirlpools appeared out of nowhere in the ancient jade bay. There were also hurricanes and tsunamis. Many fishing boats capsized in the sea. Countless fishermen and people were buried in the sea. Even many villages and towns near the bay were destroyed by the tsunamis. Tens of thousands of people died in the disaster. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their homes. The people in the surrounding cities were in a state of panic. There were rumors that the ancient Jade Bay was occupied by sea demons. Some people even saw terrifying sea beasts as large as mountains. After the Divine General's mansion received the news, they specially sent a great general to lead a fleet of warships to the ancient Jade Bay to investigate the situation. However, all 20 warships were destroyed and 2,000 elite soldiers lost their lives in the sea. The great general escaped back to the Divine General's mansion with serious injuries and brought back a piece of news. Only then did everyone understand the situation in the ancient Jade Bay. It turned out that the rumors were true. There was indeed a powerful sea demon that occupied the ancient Jade Bay. That sea demon occupied the ancient Jade Island and gathered thousands of sea beasts under its command. It's very powerful. It's causing havoc in the ancient Jade Bay, wantonly plundering resources and crazily killing the fishermen and people. Ji Tianxing guessed the reason after hearing the captain's explanation. He said solemnly, "I see. Sir Divine General must be anxious about this and will personally lead an army to exterminate that sea demon?" The captain of the guards nodded. "Indeed. 2 hours ago, the 20 Blackfin warships were assembled and are awaiting orders in the harbor. Now, Sir Divine General is ready to lead the fleet to the ancient Jade Bay and conquer the ancient Jade Island. Of course, he won't have time to meet you." He sighed and said worriedly, "In the past half a month, this is the 3rd time Sir Divine General has gone to conquer the ancient Jade Bay. Unfortunately, that sea demon is very cunning and powerful. It also has many sea beasts protecting it. Even if Sir Divine General can defeat that sea demon, he can't capture or kill it. That sea demon manages to escape every time and then continues to cause havoc." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked in disbelief, "Sir Divine General is a powerful soul cultivation realm expert. How can he not defeat that sea demon?" "Yes, that sea demon is also a soul cultivation realm expert. It's very difficult to deal with." The captain looked solemn and said angrily, "The East Sea tribe is too despicable. They don't keep their promises. Our 2 clans have always minded our own business. Who would have thought that the sea demon would come to our territory to cause trouble and massacre our people? Sir Divine General is very angry and swore to eradicate that sea demon to protect the peace of the ancient Jade Bay." Ji Tianxing was silent. He thought for a while and made up his mind. He looked at the guard captain with a serious expression and said in a solemn tone, "Brother, please report to the Divine General immediately. Tell him that the Crown Prince, Ji Tianxing, requests an audience. I'm willing to follow Sir Divine General to conquer the ancient Jade Bay and work with him to eradicate the sea demon." "Young Master Ji, you want to help Sir Divine General?" The captain was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. Even though our positions are different, we are all loyal to the imperial court. We have to plead for the people and ensure their safety. Now that I've come to the East Sea, I can't just stand by and watch. I'll do my best to help the immortal general eradicate the sea monsters. His words could be said to be righteous and impassioned, causing the blood of all the officers present to boil and fill their hearts with admiration. Xiao Han also nodded slightly, revealing an expression of deep sympathy. Then he said in a solemn tone, "That's right. Young Master Ji's words are exactly what I'm thinking. On behalf of the millions of people in the East Sea, I thank young Master Ji for your help." However, although Xiao Han said those words on the surface, he had other thoughts in his mind. He quietly transmitted his voice to Ji Tianxing and asked, "Young Master Ji, although this is the first time I've met you and I don't know much about you, I don't believe that you would come to the East Sea for no reason. You wouldn't come to the East Sea for no reason, and you wouldn't come to visit me for no reason. You've come to find me today and are willing to help me eradicate the sea monsters. There must be something you need my help with, right? Let's not beat around the bush. Young Master Ji, what's your purpose? Why don't you tell me directly?" Ji Tianxing's expression did not change. He secretly transmitted his voice to Xiao Han through his spiritual sense. "Lord Divine General, you're indeed wise and far-sighted. That's right, I do have something I need your help with. I want to go to the East Sea's 10,000 Dragons strange realm and enter the Imperial Court of the Water Race. Please help me, Lord Divine General." Xiao Han raised his eyebrows and transmitted his voice. "The 10,000 Dragons strange realm is a forbidden area for the water race. Only the emissary sent by the Imperial Court or myself can enter. Young Master Ji, if you want to enter the 10,000 Dragons strange realm, you can only ask me for help. But I want to know, why do you want to go to the Imperial Court of the Water Race?" Ji Tianxing replied in a serious tone, "I have something very important to do. I have to go to the Imperial Court of the Water Race to find out more information." Xiao Han nodded and did not ask any more questions. He looked at Ji Tianxing with sharp eyes and transmitted his voice to him in a playful tone. "I can enter the 10,000 Dragons strange realm and bring you to the Imperial Court of the Water Race. But I have no relationship with you. Why should I help you?" Ji Tianxing replied expressionlessly, "That's right. So, I have to help you eradicate the sea monsters and solve your biggest headache. Then, you have to help me enter the 10,000 Dragons strange realm." "Ha, that's easy for you to say. That sea monster has reached the soul refining stage. Even I can't do anything about it." Xiao Han obviously did not believe him. He sneered, "What makes you think that you can help me get rid of that sea monster? Where does your confidence come from?" Ji Tianxing was not angry. He smiled confidently and said, "Divine General, before I came to visit you, I have already asked around. I know how strong that sea monster is. I know that sea monster has the strength of a soul-refining stage cultivator, but I still dare to help you. Naturally, I have the corresponding confidence. Also, after I help you eradicate the sea monster, you have to bring me to the Imperial Court of the Water Race. If we can't deal with that sea monster, you can pretend that I didn't say anything and you don't have to help me. What do you think, Divine General?" Xiao Han looked at him silently. After a moment of consideration, he said in a low voice, "All right. Since young Master Ji is so confident, I will agree. If you can really help me get rid of that sea monster, not only will I bring you to the Imperial Court of the Water Race, I will also do my best to help you fulfill your wish." "It's a deal." Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. Xiao Han waved his dark red cloak and stood up. He said with a serious face, "All right, then it's a deal. Young Master Ji, please follow me to the harbor. We will immediately depart for Ancient Jade Bay. On the way to the bay, I will tell you the situation of Ancient Jade Island." Ji Tianxing also knew that time was of the essence. He nodded and agreed. "Let's go." Xiao Han waved his hand and led Ji Tianxing, the 3 generals, and the 20 commanders out of the meeting hall. They quickly walked out of the Divine General's estate and rushed to the harbor outside the city. When they arrived at the harbor, Ji Tianxing saw 20 warships lined up on the blue sea. Each warship was 100 meters long and made of pitch-black fine iron. It looked like a ferocious giant black shark, looking extremely valiant. Flags fluttered in the wind on the warships. Hundreds of elite soldiers in black armor stood solemnly. On both sides of the warships, powerful defensive formations were set up. Huge ballistas and spears were set up. 20 warships, 2,000 elite warriors, all of them were brimming with killing intent, their morale high. Chapter 982. Among the 20 warships, the most majestic one was Divine General Wang Lin's warship. Ji Tianxing followed Divine General Xiao Han, flew over the harbor and landed on the deck of the warship. The 3 generals and 20 commanders also boarded their own warships, commanding their soldiers to prepare for battle. Following Xiao Han's order, the fleet of warships raised their anchors and left the harbor, sailing towards the ancient Jade Bay in the south. Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han stood on the deck of the warship, facing the wind and gazing at the sea in front of them. The blue sea was extremely vast, as if it had no end. Layer after layer of white waves came roaring along with the strong wind, slapping the warships and their sails. Xiao Han explained in a low voice, "Within 100,000 miles around Blackstone City, there are over 100 cities and a few huge bays. Although the ancient Jade Bay is not the largest, it is the most fertile, producing all kinds of jade and icicle pearls. Spiritual stones, spiritual jades, and icicle pearls are all valuable cultivation resources, and they are the main source of income for the fishermen and common people. Ever since I've been guarding Blackstone City, the ancient Jade Bay has been peaceful for over 160 years. No aquatic creatures have ever come to disturb us. I don't know where that sea monster came from, but it has taken over the entire ancient Jade Bay, turning the sea area within a few thousand miles into its private territory. That sea monster is as huge as a mountain, and its magic power is very strong. It has thousands of sea monsters under its command, all of which can overturn rivers and seas. In the past month, that sea monster has destroyed at least thousands of fishing boats and slaughtered tens of thousands of fishermen. It has also created a few tsunamis, hundreds of meters high waves rushing to the shore, destroying all the villages and towns within 100 miles. Ji Tianxing listened in silence. After listening, he asked with a serious expression, "Sir Divine General, can you tell me more about ancient Jade Island? How do you plan to eliminate that sea monster? Are you going to send warships and the army to besiege it, or are you going to land on the island and kill it?" Xiao Han frowned and said with a serious face, "That island is 100 miles wide, deep in the bay. There used to be over a dozen fishing villages on the island. However, the sea demons occupied the island and killed all the people on the island. It also crazily plundered the ancient Jade Bay's jade, pearls, and other resources and hoarded them on the island. It had set up a strange defensive formation on the island. It looked like it was going to stay on the island and turn it into its kingdom. Now, the island was shrouded in thick fog for dozens of miles, and the warships could not get close. The fog was highly toxic. Commanders and soldiers below Sky Origin Stage would die soon once they touched the poisonous fog. Moreover, in the deep sea around the island, there are reefs and whirlpools everywhere. There are also many sea beasts guarding the island." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "Since that's the case, the battleships and army won't be able to reach the island. We can only rely on our experts to reach the island and kill the ocean devils." "That's right." Xiao Han nodded in agreement and said, "No matter how ferocious those sea beasts are, as long as the sea demon dies, they will flee in disarray. Young Master Ji, my plan is to have 20 commanders lead the fleet and surround the island to defend against the attacks of the sea beasts. I will go to the island myself, bring you and the 3 generals, and kill the ocean devils directly." Ji Tianxing thought for a while and nodded. "Okay, we will follow your plan." Xiao Han nodded and patted him on the shoulder. "There are reefs and whirlpools in front of us. That is the defense line deliberately made by the ocean devils. I'm going to command the fleet now. You can go and prepare. When we reach the island, you will follow me to the island." After that, Xiao Han turned around and left the deck to give the order to command the fleet. Ji Tianxing stood on the deck and looked at the sea in front of him. As expected, he saw many huge whirlpools. There were at least 40 whirlpools in the sea within dozens of miles. The smallest whirlpool was as big as a house, while the largest whirlpool was hundreds of meters wide. It could easily swallow several battleships. Even the sea near the whirlpools had huge waves that were dozens of meters high, bursting with a strong suction force. He used his spiritual sense to explore the sea and saw that there were many reefs hidden under the sea. They were as sharp as thorns and blades. These 20 battleships would hit the reefs if they were not careful. If they were lucky, they would be stuck. If they were lucky, they would crash into the bottom of the ship and sink on the spot. He frowned and murmured with a serious expression, "The ocean devils set up a defense line here and made the island impregnable. It is obvious that they want to stay here and not leave." It seemed that the sea monster was very cunning. It was no wonder that Xiao Han had already attacked it twice, but it had ended in failure. "No, I have to think of another way to kill the ocean devil in one go." He frowned and thought for a while. He vaguely had an idea and a plan. He turned around and left the deck, entering a secret room in the cabin. He sent his spiritual sense into the broken sword and extended it to the peaceful Earth City in the sword's small world. He directly communicated with the Golden Mountain King. "Golden Mountain King, I need your help with something." In the peaceful Earth City, the Golden Mountain King was dealing with government affairs in the palace. Suddenly, he heard Ji Tianxing's voice. He was stunned for a moment, then quickly nodded and said, "Young Master Ji, what are your orders?" Ji Tianxing did not beat around the bush. He said directly, "I want to attack an island and kill an ocean devil that has harmed the people. This ocean devil has occupied the island. Not only did it set up an inescapable net, it also stored an incomparably rich amount of jade, pearls, and mineral resources on the island. In a moment, Divine General Wang Lin and I will attack the island. You will lead the experts of the Earth Spirit race and sneak into the island." He told the Golden Mountain King his idea and plan. After hearing it, the Golden Mountain King thought carefully for a moment and agreed. "All right. For us Earth Spirits, this is a piece of cake. Young Master Ji, don't worry. That ocean devil will die without a doubt. The treasures and resources it has stored on the island will all be ours." After receiving the Golden Mountain King's confirmation, Ji Tianxing was relieved. He smiled and said, "All right, then immediately gather the men and prepare." After saying that, he withdrew his spiritual sense and entered the seal of mountains and rivers to check on Ji Ku's condition. Ji Ku had been injured and poisoned in the rainbow forest. After his treatment, Ji Ku had recuperated for half a month. His injuries and strength had completely recovered. In the 2 months since he had rushed from the great swamp of the southern wasteland to the eastern sea, Ji Ku had been cultivating in seclusion in the seal of mountains and rivers. Now, her strength had increased again. She had reached the 3rd level of Sky Origin stage. Moreover, she had cultivated the secret arts that the Heavenly Net Monster Emperor had taught her. She had already mastered 2 of her ultimate moves. Her battle prowess had increased by several times. When she learned that Ji Tianxing was going to attack the ancient Jade Island and kill the Ocean Devil, she immediately volunteered to join the operation. Chapter 983. Under Xiao Han's command, the 20 battleships passed through the defense line without any mishap. They crossed the submerged reefs and whirlpools in the sea. The fleet continued to travel for 300 miles and arrived at the sea near the ancient Jade Island. Although this place was still 200 miles away from the ancient Jade Island, Ji Tianxing flew high in the sky and looked at the sea in front of him. He could already see the end of the sea. There was a large expanse of gray fog. Ji Ku flew next to him and also looked around. She said with a heart full of joy, "This is the endless eastern sea. Indeed, the sky is high and the sea is vast and boundless." It was a pity that such a beautiful bay had been taken over by the abominable sea demons. How charming would it be if this bay was as peaceful as it was in the past? Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a determined tone, "Don't worry, Cuckoo. Today, we will kill the sea demons and sea beasts and return peace to the ancient Jade Bay." As soon as his voice dropped, the soldiers on one of the battleships below cried out in surprise. "Stay alert. Sea beasts are attacking. The sea beasts are coming. Everyone be careful. Prepare to attack." Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku immediately looked down at the sea when they heard the cries of surprise. They saw that a few incomparably huge black shadows had appeared under the azure sea. Each of the black shadows had a radius of 10 meters and was half the size of the battleships. They cruised rapidly on the sea surface and approached the battleships. Although they could not see the appearance of those sea beasts clearly through the water, those black shadows were huge. However, judging from the huge shadows, those sea beasts were all very large. They looked like crocodiles that had been magnified 10 times. Indeed, the soldiers on the battleships were the elite soldiers under the command of the divine general. Although they were shocked and alert, they did not panic. Soon, they formed a formation and activated the ballista and long spear array on both sides of the ship. Assault crossbow fire. One of the commanders waved his hand and gave the order with a booming voice. Instantly, the dozen of giant steel ballista on the ship shot out 5-meter-long, arm-thick steel bolts. Dozens of steel bolts pierced through the sky and emitted a cold light. Bang, 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 they blasted into the sea surface. Each crossbow bolt contained an incomparably powerful force, enough to destroy a house and pulverize a millstone. Apart from Sky Origin stage cultivators, no one could withstand such a heavy ballista. Even Yuan Dan stage cultivators would be injured by the bolts. Ping ping ping. Dozens of crossbow bolts flew into the sea and fiercely hit the huge shadow, causing a series of dull and loud noises. However, the huge shadow was only thwarted. After pausing for a moment, it rushed towards the warship even more crazily. Shwa! The huge black shadow quickly floated to the surface of the sea, stirring up huge waves that were 10 feet high, and crashed into one of the warships. Even though the commander of the warship sensed that something was wrong and tried his best to turn and evade the attack, he was still unable to do so. However, the speed of the warship was too slow. How could it avoid the attacks of the sea beasts? Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, the giant sea beast crashed into the warship, creating huge waves. The sea beast was blasted out of the sea surface and flew into the sky with blood gushing out of its head. It then fell towards the sea surface thousands of meters away. At that moment, Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku clearly saw that it was a Dragon King crocodile that was more than 40 meters long. It was completely black. The Dragon King crocodile had a trace of the Flood Dragon's bloodline. It was extremely strong and had a strong defense. Its huge head looked like a Flood Dragon's head, and there was a horn on its forehead that looked like a rhinoceros horn. Although the Blackfin warship was made of steel, it was more than 100 meters long and weighed more than 200,000 pounds. However, the Dragon King crocodile still made a huge dent in the warship. The Dragon King crocodile's horn also tore a huge hole in the hull of the warship. The warship shook violently and fell to the surface of the sea, scattering countless pieces of steel. The Dragon King crocodile's horn was also broken. It was bleeding profusely and there were a few broken bones in its head. Ji Tianxing took the opportunity to attack. He waved his hand and released a golden sword light towards the Dragon King crocodile. Bang! The golden sword light that was more than 30 meters long hit the Dragon King crocodile and smashed its head into pieces. It exploded into a pile of meat paste and fell into the sea. At this moment, the entire warship was tilting and was about to fall into the sea. The bottom of the left side of the warship was out of the water. The right side of the warship was already flooded with seawater. Xiao Han and a few other generals were commanding the other warships to attack the other dozen sea beasts. They wanted to help this warship, but they couldn't leave for the time being. The soldiers on the warship were anxious and terrified. They quickly activated the array to slow down the speed of the warship's capsizing. However, they could only stall for time. They still couldn't prevent the warship from capsizing and sinking. At this critical moment, Ji Tianxing attacked decisively. Blackwater rope. He shouted and waved his palms to form a mysterious seal. He used all his strength to perform the secret technique. As he waved his palms, black water vapor flew out from the sea within a 10-mile radius. It quickly condensed into a huge water column in the sky in front of him. In the blink of an eye, a 1,000-meter-long black water rope as thick as a water tank was formed. Ji Tianxing waved his hands and controlled the huge black water rope to entangle the body of the warship. He exerted his strength and used the black water rope to pull the tilting warship. He slowly pulled it back to the right position. Bang! The warship landed steadily on the sea with a muffled sound. The 100 elite soldiers on the warship looked up at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. Their eyes were full of shock. A moment later, when they came back to their senses, they all revealed smiles of having survived a calamity and let out excited cheers. This is amazing! Who is this young powerhouse? How could he have such incredible skills? Oh my God, he pulled the warship back to the right position. Our warship weighs more than 100,000 kilograms. I've heard that this young master is the Divine General's distinguished guest. He is Ji Tianxing, the son of the sovereign. When they heard the name Ji Tianxing, the soldiers on the warship were stunned. Then they cheered even more excitedly. What? He is Ji Tianxing? The legendary #1 genius of the human race, the son of the sovereign, the Tianshan region lord, Ji Tianxing? This is incredible. I've only heard of his legendary deeds and fame. I never thought that I would be able to see him with my own eyes. Ha! Young Master Ji saved us personally. We are the luckiest. Damn it, I can die without regrets at sea today to see young Master Ji's glory with my own eyes. Yes. From today onwards, we are also people who have fought alongside young Master Ji. The cheers of countless soldiers spread far and wide across the sea. When the soldiers on the other warships heard the news, they were also very excited. Unfortunately, they were busy defending against the attacks of the sea beasts. Otherwise, they would also be cheering excitedly. Chapter 984. Xiao Han stared at Ji Tianxing, who was not far away, and praised him. As expected of the #1 prodigy in our clan. No wonder he's so confident and dares to help me conquer the sea demons. The other 3 generals were around the 5th or 6th level of the heavenly origin stage. After witnessing Ji Tianxing's powerful strength, the 3 of them were shocked and impressed. They were even more confident in this battle. However, now was not the time to talk. Xiao Han and the 3 generals took a deep look at Ji Tianxing, and then went back to killing the sea beasts. On the 20 battleships, 2,000 elite soldiers worked together to defend against the sea beasts' attacks. Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku also made their moves and killed the sea beasts one after another. The sea beasts were huge and had the strength of the 7th or 8th level of the origin core stage. They were like the overlords of the sea. The commoners and fishermen could not do anything to these sea beasts. Even the people and the ships were destroyed by the sea beasts. However, Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku were heavenly origin stage powerhouses. They easily killed the sea beasts. This battle lasted for half an hour before it ended. A total of over 30 sea beasts were killed, turning into pieces of flesh and blood that were scattered in the sea. The sea surface within a radius of 10 miles was dyed red. 2 of the battleships were severely damaged. They temporarily stopped on the sea as the craftsmen tried their best to repair them. The other few battleships were lightly damaged. It did not affect the battle. Out of the 2,000 elite soldiers, only a dozen of them were killed and a few dozen were injured. This little loss was not a big deal. Xiao Han ordered the fleet to continue advancing toward the ancient Jade Island. However, the 30 sea beasts were only the scouts of the ancient Jade Island. The commotion caused by the battle had already alerted the ancient Jade Island. Ji Tianxing flew in the sky and could clearly see the movements on the island. The sky was filled with thick fog that was rolling and spreading. Under the sea in all directions, densely packed huge black shadows appeared. They were rushing toward the fleet at an extremely fast speed. Seeing this, Xiao Han decisively gave the order, ordering the warships to get into a conical formation and jointly activate the defensive formation. Soon, the 20 battleships stopped on the sea and formed a battle formation. They formed a defensive formation with a radius of 10 miles to defend against the sea beasts' attacks. After a while, hundreds of sea beasts charged toward the fleet from all directions. They were not afraid of death. The 2,000 elite soldiers fired their crossbows and spears to attack the sea beasts under the sea. Xiao Han, Ji Tianxing, Ji Ku, the 3 generals, and the 20 commanders attacked the sea beasts. Xiao Han's strength was at the 5th level of the soul cultivation stage. He stood proudly in the sky, his scarlet cape fluttering in the wind. His entire body was bursting with a powerful battle intent and killing intent. Heavenly star explosion. He swung his palms and formed a mysterious hand seal. He manipulated his spiritual energy and unleashed a secret technique. Suddenly, dozens of basin-sized silver light balls flew out from his palms and blasted at the black shadows under the sea. Each silver ball of light contained a violent and terrifying power that could easily destroy a mountain. Those sea beasts were swimming rapidly under the sea and charging toward the battleships with all their might. Bam, 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 bam. The silver light balls hit them one after another, and a series of earth-shattering explosions erupted. At that moment, the silver light balls exploded one after another. They lit up with dazzling silver light that was as dazzling as the stars in the sky. Dozens of deep pits were formed on the surface of the sea. Huge waves that were hundreds of meters high splashed up. Dozens of sea beasts were instantly blasted into pieces. Blood splattered all over the sky and sprinkled on the sea. Xiao Han killed dozens of sea beasts in one move. Such terrifying strength and means made countless soldiers cheer excitedly. However, the number of sea beasts was too great. More and more sea beasts rushed over from all directions, vowing to destroy the battleship fleet. Most of the sea beasts were hiding under the sea. However, there were also many fan-like manta ray kings that leaped out of the sea and charged from the sky. The soldiers fought bravely while bathed in blood. They fought on the surface of the sea, and their battle cries shook the sky. Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku were not to be outdone. They also used their secret techniques to attack the sea beasts. Shatter the mountains and rivers. Ji Tianxing's figure flashed like lightning. He released thousands of golden sword lights that shrouded the sea within a radius of 5 miles. There were more than 20 sea beasts in this area that were charging toward the fleet with all their might. Boom, boom, boom. The thousands of golden sword lights exploded at the same time and shredded more than 20 sea beasts into pieces. A huge whirlpool also appeared on the surface of the sea. The dark red blood spread out along with the waves and soon dyed the surface of the sea red. In the sky above the sea 10 miles away from Ji Tianxing, Ji Ku was also fighting bravely. She held a silver sword and a red sword in each hand and stood majestically in the sky. She swung her swords and released silver sword lights that covered the sky and earth, sprinkling down on the sea below. Flying stars and setting moon. Hundreds of sharp and domineering silver sword lights fell like stars and blasted a few sea beasts under the sea. Those dragon monarch crocodiles and manta ray kings were instantly shredded into pieces by the sword lights. Moonblade Sky Strike. Ji Ku's body surged with dazzling silver light. She swung her dual swords again and slashed out dozens of willow leaf-like moonblades towards the 4 sea beasts. Bam, bam, bam. The 4 sea beasts were shredded into pieces and sank into the sea after being hit by the moonblades. Ji Tianxing witnessed this scene with his own eyes and instantly revealed a gratified smile. He knew that the silver and red swords were soul-level magic treasures that the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor had chosen for Ji Ku. They were called the Crimson Moon Swords. The 2 sword techniques that Ji Ku used were also secret swordsmanship techniques that the Heavenly Net Demon Emperor had imparted to Ji Ku. That was why they were so powerful when Ji Ku had mastered them. It was not difficult to see that Ji Ku had indeed been working hard for the past year. Her strength had increased very quickly. This battle continued for a full hour, and it still did not end. The soldiers had continuously killed more than 500 sea beasts. Their blood dyed the sea red for dozens of miles. The formation of the warship fleet was still firm and the defensive formation was still indestructible. However, the number of sea beasts did not decrease but increased. More and more sea beasts rushed over from all directions and besieged the warship fleet. The blood that filled the sea did not make them afraid. Instead, it aroused their ferocity and made them fearless as they madly charged forward. Seeing this scene, Xiao Han pondered for a moment with a solemn expression. Then, he transmitted his voice to Ji Tianxing, "Young Master Ji, we can't waste any more time. There are at least thousands of sea beasts in ancient Jade Bay. We can't kill them all no matter what. The 3 generals and the warship fleet will stay here and resist the attack of the sea beasts. You will go to the island with me. We will kill the sea beasts as soon as possible and end the battle quickly." Obviously, Xiao Han had changed the battle plan at the last minute. Originally, he wanted to bring Ji Tianxing and the 3 generals to the island to join forces against the sea beasts. Now that the situation was critical, the 3 generals had to stay in the fleet. Otherwise, the fleet would be destroyed by the sea beasts sooner or later. Chapter 985. Xiao Han ordered the 3 generals to stay on the battleships and defend against the attacks of the sea beasts. Ji Tianxing also flew to Ji Ku's side and said, "Ku, I will go to the island with General Wang Lin to kill the sea beasts. Stay with the fleet and help the 3 generals to defend against the sea beasts. Be careful." Ji Ku understood that the sea beasts occupying the island had reached the soul-tempering realm. Even if she was worried about Ji Tianxing's safety, she could not go to the island with him. Not only would she not be able to help him, she might even drag him down. Therefore, she suppressed her worries and nodded solemnly. "Brother Tianxing, don't worry. I will wait here for your triumphant return. No matter what, you must protect yourself. Nothing must happen to you. Okay, wait for me. I will be back soon." Ji Tianxing nodded and turned to fly to Xiao Han. He and Xiao Han flew across the sky, crossed the blue sea, and went straight to the ancient Jade Island. Swoosh swoosh. The 2 of them turned into dazzling flowing lights and flew at an extremely fast speed. After 10 breaths, they had flown almost 100 miles and arrived at the edge of the ancient Jade Island. In front of them was an area covered by a thick fog that covered a radius of 300 miles. In the center of the fog was the ancient Jade Island, but it was covered by the fog and could not be seen at all. When Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han arrived at the edge of the fog, a large number of black shadows had gathered under the sea. They were all kinds of sea beasts. These sea beasts were all in the origin core realm. They could only stir up trouble in the sea and could not fly in the sky. Even if they looked up at Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han and swam angrily and anxiously, they could only spit out water pillars and huge waves to annoy the 2 of them. Xiao Han glanced at the sea beasts and a cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He waved his palms and released an invisible spiritual energy that covered a radius of 10 miles. "Explode!" He shouted and detonated his spiritual energy. Instantly, a silent spiritual energy fluctuation exploded within a radius of 10 miles and created huge waves. Hundreds of ferocious sea beasts had their souls shattered by him. After their bodies shook, they all sank to the bottom of the sea. Those sea beasts looked unharmed on the surface, but in reality, their souls had been shattered, and they were completely dead. "There's no time to lose, let's go." Xiao Han effortlessly killed many sea beasts and flew into the thick fog with Ji Tianxing, flying towards the ancient Jade Island. The 2 of them flew in the thick fog, unable to see their surroundings clearly. They were also being corroded by the poison. However, Xiao Han's strength was high, and he had divine soul power protecting his body. The poison was unable to touch him at all. Ji Tianxing possessed the heaven-mending orb, which was equivalent to having an impenetrable physique. He could also ignore the corrosion of poison. The 2 of them passed through the thick fog at lightning speed and soon arrived above ancient Jade Island. The island was shrouded in poisonous fog, but the island itself was clear. There was no poisonous fog, only a defensive formation protecting it. Swish swish. The 2 of them landed on the west side of the island and landed on a huge reef by the sea. There was no beach on the west side of the island, only pitch black and rugged reefs. They had been washed by the waves for countless years and looked mottled with vicissitudes. Not far from the shore was a dense forest, full of towering ancient trees that were hundreds of meters tall. Xiao Han pointed at the forest and said with a serious face, "Young Master Ji, that forest is the edge of the island's defensive formation. If we want to enter the island, we must break that formation. The last 2 times I came to attack the sea demons, it took the initiative to fight me on the sea surface. Although I'm stronger than it and defeated it twice, it escaped back to the island, and I couldn't do anything to it." Ji Tianxing understood what he meant and said with a serious face, "If that's the case, then let's work together to break the island's defensive formation and kill it on the island." Young Master Ji, that's a soul-level formation you? Xiao Han turned to look at him with a puzzled expression. Ji Tianxing showed a confident smile and nodded. Lord Divine General, maybe you don't know, but I'm a Grandmaster Array Master. As long as Lord Divine General helps me, we can definitely break the formation. After saying that, he flew to the forest and landed on the edge of the forest. He released his spirit sense to explore the forest, but it was immediately blocked by an invisible wall. The invisible wall was the island's defensive formation. Ji Tianxing used his pure heart Dharma eye and immediately saw a half-foot thick ocean blue light wall standing in the forest. The ocean blue light wall was very huge, like a curtain that covered the sky and covered the island with a radius of 100 miles. Even a soul-refining cultivator like Xiao Han couldn't break the island's defensive formation by force. Xiao Han knew the island's defensive formation's power, so when he saw Ji Tianxing carefully observing the formation, he silently stood beside him and waited expectantly. After about a quarter of an hour, Ji Tianxing finally understood the structure of the formation. He pondered for a long time before he thought of a way to break the formation. He said to Xiao Han, Lord Divine General, I've seen through this island's defensive formation and found a way to break it. However, I need your help. In a while, I'll take the main Xian position, and you'll attack the Kuan position. Advance 7 times, retreat 3 times, and turn 3 times, the Sun position. Your magic power must be majestic, and you can't be too impatient. Xiao Han was stunned and looked at him in disbelief. He revealed a surprised expression. Young Master Ji, can you really break this island's defensive formation? This is a high-grade soul rank grand array. Only a formation Dao Grandmaster, a powerhouse around the 7th level of the soul refinement realm, can crack it. Ji Tianxing didn't explain much and only nodded to him. He waved his hand and released a majestic amount of true essence into the island's defensive formation. Xiao Han saw that he began to break the formation, so he stopped thinking about it. He suppressed his shock and surprise and waved his hand to release a vast amount of magic power to help Ji Tianxing break the formation. Ji Tianxing's method of breaking the formation was very skillful. He waved his hand as fast as lightning and formed the formation seals, dazzling the eyes of others. No matter how shocked Xiao Han was, he had no choice but to believe him. He followed his instructions and meticulously broke the formation. Soon, half an hour passed. With Xiao Han's help, Ji Tianxing successfully broke the island's defensive formation and tore a gap in the azure sky. Although the gap was only the size of a palm and could only last for 10 breaths of time, it would automatically repair itself. But this was already a miracle, and it made Xiao Han happy and shocked. This is great. We've finally broken the island's defensive formation, and there's hope to kill the sea monsters. Young Master Ji, this seat joining forces with you to fight the sea monsters is definitely the wisest decision. Ji Tianxing revealed a smile and extended his hand to make a gesture of invitation. Lord Divine General, now is not the time to talk about this. It won't be too late to sit down and talk after we kill the sea monsters. The sea monsters must have received the news and made preparations. We have to hurry, so you go first. Xiao Han didn't waste any more time. His body turned into a stream of light, passed through the gap, and entered the formation. Chapter 986. 2. With a flash of golden light, Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han flew through the blue sky and landed on the island. The two of them stood by the edge of the forest. Not far away from them was an empty land. In the open space with a radius of 10 miles, there were some broken walls and ancient trees scattered here and there, leaving behind many brick and stone ruins. There were many holes and cracks on the ground, leaving traces of a great fire. Xiao Han said with a dark face, there used to be a fishing village there. It was the largest fishing village on the ancient Jade Island, with over 4,000 people living there. 1 month ago, the sea monster led an army of sea beasts into the ancient Jade Bay and occupied the island. All the villages on the island were destroyed. Tens of thousands of fishermen were killed by the sea monster. Ji Tianxing looked at the ruins on the empty land, imagining the scene when the fishing village was destroyed. His face turned dark, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Right at this moment, A few streams of flowing light flew over from the sky and landed on the empty land. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 6 streams of flowing light landed on the empty land, standing 1,000 meters away from the two of them, staring at them with murderous intents. The 6 of them were aquatic creatures in different shapes. Some were dark and tall like water monsters, some were thin and short like shrimps, and some had fish heads and human bodies, with fish scales all over their bodies. The 6 aquatic creatures were all at the 4th or 5th level of Sky Origin stage. They were as powerful as the generals under Xiao Han's command. They were all holding strange-shaped weapons, shouting with murderous intents, "Human bastards, how dare you break into the ancient Jade Water Nation? You are courting death. How dare you offend the great Ink King? You will die. Hee, I'm going to tear the two of you into pieces and swallow you piece by piece into my stomach. Since you are here, don't even think about leaving alive." The 6 aquatic creatures were showing off their power, looking cruel and bloodthirsty. Ji Tianxing frowned in confusion and turned to look at Xiao Han. "Ancient Jade Water Nation? My immortal general, what is going on?" Xiao Han said expressionlessly, "That sea demon is a grand ink octopus. It calls itself the Grand Ink King. It wants to occupy the entire ancient Jade Gulf and establish the ancient Jade Water Nation. These aquatic creatures are all water generals under its command. They are in charge of the army of sea beasts, and they are also the culprits behind the massacre of hundreds of thousands of fishermen and civilians." "I see." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said with a cold smile, "This is the territory of the human race. A mere soul refinement stage sea monster wants to take over this place, establish a kingdom, and proclaim itself as its king? What wishful thinking." The 6 water generals were immediately enraged. They glared at him fiercely and scolded, "Bastard, who are you? How dare you mock our king? The Eastern Sea is the territory of our water race. When did it become the territory of your human race? You are the evil invaders. Brat, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Right now, I'm going to break all the bones in your body and crush you into meat paste." While yelling and cursing, the 6 water warriors wielded their weapons and rushed towards Ji Tianxing with a strong killing intent. "Humph! You're digging your own grave." Ji Tianxing snorted coldly. His eyes flashed with cold killing intent as he made his move. Metal slash. He waved his palms and released a giant golden sword that was 100 meters long. It slashed towards the 2 water generals. Bang! The 2 ferocious water generals had no time to dodge. They were killed on the spot by the huge golden sword and split into 2 halves. A 1,000-meter-long gully was cut into the ground of the ruins. The cracks were densely packed, and dust flew up into the air. The 4 surviving water generals were also knocked back by the violent shockwave. They looked at Ji Tianxing in horror. They could not believe that Ji Tianxing's strength was so terrifying that he could kill 2 water generals with a single slash. This was simply too terrifying. The 4 water generals were stunned on the spot. Their hearts were filled with fear and despair. They immediately turned and ran. At this moment, Xiao Han also made his move like lightning. He waved his palms and released 4 streams of green light that condensed into a giant blade. It fell from the sky and slashed towards the 4 water generals. The 4 water generals were scared out of their wits. They did not even dare to say a word and desperately scattered to avoid the attack. However, the 4 giant blades of green light locked onto the souls of the 4 water generals. No matter where they ran, they could not escape from the giant blades of green light. Bang, 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 bang. In a series of muffled sounds, the 4 water generals were slashed by the giant blades of green light. They were smashed into pieces on the spot. Pieces of flesh and blood flew all over the sky. The empty space that was already in a mess had a few more huge holes added to it, turning it into a complete ruin. Xiao Han's sharp eyes scanned the surroundings. He released his divine soul power to search for other sea beasts or water generals nearby. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ji Tianxing quietly took out the broken sword and stabbed it into the ground. With a thought, he opened the small sword world of the broken sword. The broken sword released a white light that penetrated deep into the underground rock layer and condensed into a light door. Golden Mountain King, I've already reached the island. You can set off now. He used his spiritual sense to speak to the Golden Mountain King in the Sword World. In Peaceful Land City, the Golden Mountain King had already gathered 800 elite warriors and was ready to set off. As Ji Tianxing's voice sounded, a giant light door appeared in Peaceful Land City. The Golden Mountain King and the many warriors were in high spirits. They immediately stepped through the giant light door and left the Sword World. The next moment, they all entered the depths of the island and passed through the rock layer, diving toward the center of the island. The Golden Mountain King and the 800 warriors of the Earth Spirit race passed through the depths of the earth like a gust of wind. However, Xiao Han was a soul refinement realm expert. His divine soul covered a radius of 10 miles. Of course, he could sense the movements underground. He turned his head to look at Ji Tianxing and asked with a puzzled expression, "Young Master Ji, what are you doing?" Ji Tianxing held the black, cold, broken sword and said calmly, "I've sent 800 elven warriors to assist us in battle and give the sea demons a surprise." Xiao Han frowned slightly. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He was very surprised. He didn't expect Ji Tianxing to have formed his own force, and it was the mysterious elves. This was too unbelievable. He had only interacted with Ji Tianxing for a few hours. He didn't know much about Ji Tianxing, but he was already shocked time and time again. He couldn't imagine how many more times he would be shocked if he spent a few more days with Ji Tianxing. At this moment, an earth-shaking roar came from the center of the island. The roar was like that of an ancient beast, filled with extreme anger and killing intent. Xiao Han's expression changed. He said in a serious tone, "It's that sea demon, the Ink King. It has already appeared. We have to kill it immediately. Otherwise, it might escape." With that, Xiao Han flew toward the center of the island. Chapter 987. Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han flew across the sky and quickly arrived at the center of the island. There was a wide open space in the middle of the island, where several huge palaces were built. The palaces did not look luxurious. Their style was rough and weird, which was obviously the style of the Water Tribe. Around the palaces, there were hundreds of Water Tribe guards, all of whom had the strength of the Origin Core realm. These people were all transformed from sea beasts. Some looked like prawn demons, some looked like apes, some looked like mermen, some looked like turtle demons, and some looked like jellyfish. They were all wearing different kinds of armor, holding spears and weapons in their hands, trying to look mighty and dignified. But unfortunately, they were all different in size, and their postures were very awkward, which only made them look funny. Above the palaces, there were 9 Water Tribe experts. The leader was a burly man in a golden robe, his whole body as black as ink. Although he looked like a human, his skin was full of holes and small suction cups. He had a wide flat mouth, no nose, and 3 pairs of green eyes. His head was bald and full of sarcomas, which looked very hideous and disgusting. He had the strength of the 4th LV of the soul refining realm, and his whole body was bursting with anger and murderous intent. He was the sea demon, the giant octopus who called himself the King of Ink. Behind him in the sky, there were 8 Water Tribe experts, all of whom had the strength of the Sky Origin realm. They were the water generals under the King of Ink. The 8 water generals stood in a row, holding swords and weapons. They glared at Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han, their whole body bursting with strong murderous intent. The King of Ink glared at Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing and roared angrily, "Bastard! Divine General Wang Lin, you bastard, how dare you break into my kingdom? Since you are here today, don't think you can get out alive. I will kill you and cut you into pieces." Xiao Han stared at the King of Ink expressionlessly and said in a cold voice, "You bastard, how dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? You don't know that you are about to die. This ancient Jade Island was originally the territory of my clan's people. They had lived and worked here peacefully for countless years. It's you. It was you, you damned beast, who destroyed all the fishing villages and killed all the fishermen. You and those sea beasts under your command created monstrous waves and tsunamis, destroying the villages and towns within 200 miles of the coast. You've killed tens of thousands of my people and made hundreds of thousands of them homeless. You deserve to die. Xiao Han's voice was as loud as a bell. His tone was dignified and contained a biting cold killing intent. Not to be outdone, Taimo King roared at the top of his voice, "Those lowly insects of the human race deserve to die. The East Sea is the territory of our water race. The land is the territory of you humans. Not only did those lowly commoners fish and prawns in the sea, they also stole this king's resources like jade and pearls. They even dared to occupy this island. They deserve to die." Xiao Han furrowed his brows as a cold light flickered in his eyes. With a dignified voice, he angrily shouted, "Have you lost your mind? This is the territory of the human race. Only the deep sea area is the territory of the water race. This is the rule set by the imperial court of the two races. How dare you mess it up?" Taimo King grinned coldly and said, "I don't care about the rules of the imperial court. The ancient Jade Bay is mine. This ancient Jade Island is mine, too. My words are the rules." Xiao Han was so angry that his whole body was surging with killing intent. He shouted in a deep voice, "Good. I won't waste my breath on you. I'll kill you now. Then, I'll take your body to the imperial court of the water race to ask for your punishment. I'd like to see who ordered you, evil creature, to be so audacious as to harm the people of our human race." As his voice trailed off, a towering white light gushed out from Xiao Han's body. It turned into a divine soul light shield that covered half of the island. Behind him, 5 huge divine soul dharma eyes appeared in the sky. "Heavenly wind territory, form." As Xiao Han shouted angrily, the 5 divine soul dharma eyes burst out with endless divine soul power and formed the entire heavenly wind territory. The area within a radius of 50 miles was sealed. Even an ant could not escape. Taimo King's expression changed drastically. He shouted furiously, "Go! Kill them for me. These 2 damned human worms, how dare they offend this king? Chop them up and feed them to the fish." The 8 water generals screamed and rushed toward Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing. Several mermen and fish demons were so excited that they were drooling. Xiao Han's expression changed. He shouted angrily and raised his palms to shoot out 4 white divine soul light beams toward the 4 water generals who were in the front. "You're courting death." Ji Tianxing also attacked immediately. He released 4 golden sword lights and slashed toward the other 4 water generals. The attacks from the 2 of them were about to hit the 8 water generals. At the critical moment, Taimo King raised his hands and released over a dozen dark tentacles to slap the white divine soul light beams from Xiao Han. Bang 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 bang. With a series of muffled sounds, the 4 white divine soul light beams were smashed into pieces by the tentacles. The 4 water generals were not hurt at all. They kept rushing toward Xiao Han and besieging him. Meanwhile, Ji Tianxing's 4 sword gleams hit the other 4 water generals. With a series of muffled bangs, the 4 water generals were knocked flying backward by the golden sword beams. 2 of the water generals were only at Sky Origin Stage Level 5. They were instantly killed by the sword lights. Their bodies were smashed into pieces. The other 2 water generals were lucky enough to survive. However, they were severely wounded by the sword lights. There were bowl-sized bloody holes on their bodies. Taimo King was stunned. He opened his green eyes wide and stared at Ji Tianxing. "You actually killed this king's valiant general in seconds?" Taimo King only paid attention to Xiao Han. He regarded Xiao Han as a strong opponent. He saw that Ji Tianxing was only at Sky Origin Stage, so he didn't take Ji Tianxing seriously. In his opinion, the 4 water generals should be able to kill Ji Tianxing easily. Ji Tianxing should be killed. However, he didn't expect the result to be like this. When Taimo King came to himself, he was furious. He abandoned Xiao Han and rushed to Ji Tianxing with murderous intent. "You little bastard! I will kill you first." With a furious roar, black light flashed all over its body, and it revealed its true body with a swoosh. In the blink of an eye, Taimo King turned into a giant black octopus that was over 100 meters tall. This octopus great demon had an extremely terrifying body. Its body was like a black hill, with hundreds of black thorny tentacles growing out of its body. Each tentacle was over 1,000 meters long. They were as flexible as whips. There were thorns and suckers on them. They could even spray black venom. He rushed to Ji Tianxing in an instant. He reached out dozens of tentacles and slapped down on Ji Tianxing. Chapter 988. Dozens of 1,000-meter-long tentacles were about to drown Ji Tianxing. At this critical moment, Xiao Han was shocked and angry. He rushed over to help Su Mo anxiously. In his opinion, Ji Tianxing was only at LV9 of the Sky Origin Realm, while Mo Lord was at LV4 of the Soul Cultivation Realm. No matter what, Ji Tianxing was no match for Mo Lord. He would be killed immediately. However, Ji Tianxing was not an ordinary person. He was the Region Lord and the Imperial Prince of the Monarch Mansion. This time, Ji Tianxing was going to the East Sea with him. If anything happened to him, he would not be able to explain it to the Imperial Court and the Monarch Mansion. However, Mo Lord was too fast. Before Xiao Han could save him, Ji Tianxing had already been slapped by dozens of thick and sturdy tentacles. Boom, boom, boom. In the deafening noise, dozens of huge tentacles burst out with destructive power and smashed Ji Tianxing to the ground from the sky. A 1,000-meter-wide crater was created on the ground. The crater was full of cracks. Even a few palaces not far away were shaken to the point of shaking. Huge cracks appeared on the palaces, and they were torn apart. Oh no! Xiao Han's expression changed. He knew something bad was going to happen. His figure flashed as he rushed over. He formed a secret seal with his palms and manipulated the power of his spiritual domain. He condensed 5 giant white light blades that could split heaven and earth and slashed them down from the sky. 5 heavens dragon-slaying sword. The 500-meter-long blades of white light were as fast as lightning, and they slashed at Mo Monarch's tentacles with unstoppable power. Bang, bang, bang. Mo Lord did not have time to withdraw his tentacles. He was hit by the 5 giant white light blades. More than 30 tentacles were cut off. Black blood splashed all over the sky. The black blood was highly toxic, and it rained down on the ground like a heavy downpour, immediately corroding the earth and riddling it with holes. Mo King screamed in pain and hurriedly retreated. The 30 tentacles were still curling up and jumping after they fell to the ground. They tried to run back to Mo Lord's body and tried to recover. But how could Xiao Han let it have its way? Slash! He waved his hand and unleashed an overwhelming amount of divine soul white light, which turned into dozens of giant white light swords and slashed at the tentacles. Suddenly, more than 30 broken tentacles were cut into pieces by the white sword light and could no longer be restored. Mo King was extremely furious. He roared crazily and waved hundreds of tentacles, releasing black venom that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It sprayed toward Xiao Han like a torrential flood. However, Xiao Han relied on his spiritual energy to protect his body as well as the protection of his soul-grade magic treasure to ignore the poison that filled the sky. He hurriedly flew into the deep pit that was 1,000 meters wide, anxiously searching for Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, you mustn't die. Even if I only have half my life left, it's still good. He prayed silently in his heart. His spiritual sense covered a radius of 10 miles, and even probed into the rock layer at the bottom of the crater. However, the deep pit was empty. Except for gravel and mud, there was no sign of Ji Tianxing. Not even a piece of his robe could be found. Seeing this, Xiao Han's heart was burning with anxiety. He murmured to himself, "Damn it! Could it be that he was smashed into pieces by Mo King? Not even a piece of him is left?" At this moment, he suddenly heard an angry roar in the sky not far away. Sword of Judgment. Xiao Han turned his head subconsciously and saw Ji Tianxing appear behind Mo King, unharmed, in the sky 8 miles away. His whole body was surging with sacred golden light. He released a giant golden sword and slashed it toward Mo King from the sky. Seeing this, Xiao Han was stunned and opened his eyes wide in disbelief. He could not believe that Ji Tianxing was not killed after being hit by the tentacles of Tai Mo King. Not only was he not killed, he was even able to continue attacking. This was a miracle. Tai Mo King was also dumbfounded. He was stunned for a moment. When he came to himself, it was too late for him to dodge the attack of the Sword of Judgment. Boom! Amidst the deafening noise, the 100-meter-long Sword of Judgment slammed into its body, bursting out with a power that could destroy heaven and earth. Instantly, the Sword of Judgment blasted a huge bloody hole in the mountain-sized body of the Taima Lord, causing black blood to spurt out. More than 10 thick tentacles were also cut off by the Sword of Judgment. Tai Mo King was seriously injured. He was sent flying backward by the Sword of Judgment and crashed heavily on the ground 10 miles away. With a loud rumble, a huge crater was smashed into the ground. Its hundreds of tentacles smashed into the ground, creating numerous cracks. Swish! With a flash of golden light, the Sword of Judgment flew back to Ji Tianxing. It turned into a golden sword core and went back into Ji Tianxing's chest. Lying in the deep pit, Tai Mo King twitched and roared in pain. He struggled for a while before he could get up. His injuries were too serious. His strength was weakening rapidly. He looked miserable. More importantly, its dark green eyes were fixed on Ji Tianxing, revealing an incomparably shocked expression. How could this be? I don't believe it. You are only at the Tianyuan realm. How could you injure me? Xiao Han was also stunned. He looked up at Ji Tianxing in the sky and murmured, "No wonder he is the famous sovereign's son. He is the #1 genius who has created countless miracles. No wonder he is so confident. He dares to boast to me that he can kill the sea monsters. He is only at the half-step soul-tempering realm. His combat strength is so terrifying. If he enters the soul-tempering realm, his combat strength will be on par with mine. He's truly a peerless genius that's hard to come by, a monster." At this moment, the 6 water generals under Tai Mo King's command were scared out of their wits when they saw Tai Mo King was seriously injured. They knew how powerful Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han were. They were so scared that they ran away immediately. Ji Tianxing wanted to kill them. How could he let them run away? Today, none of you can run away. You will all die. You will be buried with the dead people of the human race. With a murderous roar, he chased after the few water generals at the speed of light. Metal slash. Red dragon flash. Scorching sun flame. He released a giant golden sword that was 100 meters long and killed 2 water generals in an instant. Then, he released a giant flaming sword that was 100 meters long. It hit a water general like a red flaming dragon and turned it into ashes. In the end, he caught up with the 3 water generals who were fleeing in panic. He used scorching sunfire and released 9 fireballs that blotted out the sky. It was as if a scorching sun had fallen from the sky. Following a series of earth-shattering explosions, the 3 water generals were blasted into smithereens by the huge fireballs. Everything within a 10-mile radius was turned into a boundless sea of fire. Several deep craters were formed on the ground. It was a charred ruin. Tai Mo King's palace was razed to the ground by the 9 sun-like fireballs. It was a charred ruin. Chapter 989. Both the Tai Mo Lord and Xiao Han were stunned by the earth-shattering scene. 6 Sky Origin Realm Water Generals, more than 100 Origin Core Realm Water Tribe Guards, and a few palaces of the Tai Mo Lord had been destroyed by Ji Tianxing in the blink of an eye. The area within a 20-mile radius had been turned into scorched earth and ashes were floating in the sky. Xiao Han asked himself. Even if he had done it himself, he would not have been able to do it. Ji Tianxing had done it with the strength of a half-step to soul-tempering realm. A miracle. Unbelievable. No wonder the Emperor thinks so highly of him. Today is an eye-opener for me. In time, he will become a top soul-tempering realm cultivator. He might even reach the primordial soul realm and become the 2nd supreme master of our tribe. Xiao Han looked at Ji Tianxing with a complicated expression and sighed in his heart. That was his evaluation of Ji Tianxing. It was the first time in his life that he had given such a high evaluation of a junior. Not long ago, he had been proud of his status as a divine general. Even if Ji Tianxing was the heavenly stellar region lord, a genius, he was still a junior in his eyes. He had to respect him. But now, Xiao Han's view of Ji Tianxing had changed completely. In his heart, Ji Tianxing already had the qualifications to sit on equal footing with him and talk as equals. In another 7 to 8 years, Ji Tianxing's strength would surpass his. At this thought, 4 words appeared in Xiao Han's heart. The younger generation will surpass us in time. At this moment, the Grand Ink Monarch released a black venom that blotted out the sky and covered the earth, spraying it towards Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing. The two of them quickly used a secret technique to form a true core shield and a soul-level magical treasure to block the venom. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the Taimo Lord shrank his body and turned into a ball of black light. With a whoosh, he burrowed into the ground and escaped to the sea. It was already heavily injured, and all of its water generals had died. Right now, it was a general without an army. It wasn't a match for Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han. If it didn't escape now, only death would await it. However, half of the island was sealed off by Xiao Han's divine soul domain. It was impossible to escape from the sky. It could only burrow into the ground and desperately flee to the sea. As long as it could escape back to the sea, it would be able to get rid of Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han. After all, it was the water race's great demon king. It could unleash 120% of its strength in the East Sea. Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han had just blocked the overwhelming poison when they realized that the Taimo Lord had disappeared. Damn it, I actually let it escape. Ji Tianxing's face was gloomy, his eyes filled with murderous intent. It escaped into the ground. Let's chase it. We can't let it escape back into the sea. Chapter 990. Even though Ji Tianxing had used up 50% of his true origin to execute the attack, it was still not enough. However, the power of the sword was far beyond his imagination. Lord Taimo, who was at the 4th level of the soul refining stage, was cut into pieces by Jian Wushuang. His body turned into pieces of flesh and venom. Even Xiao Han, who was at the 5th level of the soul refining stage, could not do that. The power of the magical sword could destroy the heaven and earth. After cutting Lord Taimo's body into pieces, the 300-meter-long black sword did not reduce its power at all. Instead, it hit the ground hard. Boom! A loud noise that shook the sky burst out. A 30-mile-long gully was created on the ground. It was like a natural chasm. The entire island was shaking violently. Huge waves that were hundreds of meters high rose up in the sea. This sword strike had almost split half of the island apart. Xiao Han was dumbfounded. He stared at the gully with his mouth agape. His heart was beating fast. There was only one thought in his mind. This guy. Is he really only at the sky origin stage? He killed Lord Taimo and almost split half the island. Even if I try my best, I may not be able to do that. Xiao Han was shocked again and again. His heart and nerves were almost numb. Now that things had come to this, even if Ji Tianxing were to do something that would shock the world and create an unprecedented miracle, he would no longer be surprised. Because he had realized that Ji Tianxing himself was a miracle. Any kind of miracle could happen to this guy. He definitely couldn't be viewed as a normal person. He was an evildoer that only appeared once in 1,000 years. At this moment, pieces of flesh and tentacles fell from the sky and fell to the ground. Among them was a fist-sized ice-blue crystal, which fell to the ground with a loud thud and created a huge crater on the ground. Although the crystal was not big, it was crystal clear and looked like a piece of blue crystal. However, it was emitting an extremely cold air. It weighed over 50,000 kilograms, which was extremely shocking. What is this? Ji Tianxing frowned in confusion. His figure flashed and flew into the deep pit, reaching out to pick up the ice-blue crystal. When he held the ice-blue crystal in his hand, he felt a bone-piercing cold, as if his palm was being pricked by hundreds of needles. He subconsciously wanted to pick up the ice-blue crystal, but the crystal did not move. The incomparably heavy force caused his wrist to produce a crack sound, and the joints of his 5 fingers also made crackling sounds. Strange, why is this crystal so heavy? Ji Tianxing's complexion changed, and he shook his somewhat sore palm and urged his true essence to pick up the ice blue crystal. He held the ice blue crystal with both hands, turning it over and over to examine it. At this moment, the weak voice of the burial of heaven sounded in his mind. Tianxing, congratulations. You've achieved half of your goal. Tianxing was stunned and asked in confusion, Burial of heaven, what do you mean? The burial of heaven said in a low voice, this mysterious crystal is actually a type of metal. It is the illusory feather ice gold that I asked you to find. What? This is the illusory feather ice gold? Tianxing's eyes were filled with disbelief, and he was very excited. No wonder this crystal is so strange. It is as heavy as the star divine gold. However, the illusory feather ice gold is a priceless treasure, and it is kept by the imperial court of the Sea Tribe. Why is it here? I just killed the physical body of the Taimo Lord, and this illusory feather ice gold fell from his body. The burial of heaven did not reply. Apparently, he did not know the reason. At the same time, a dazzling white ball of light flew out from the pieces of flesh on the ground, as fast as lightning, and flew toward the seaside. Tianxing was immediately alerted. He turned around and saw clearly that the dazzling white ball of light was the divine soul of the Taimo Lord. A powerhouse at the soul-tempering stage, even if his physical body was destroyed, would not be considered dead as long as his divine soul was not destroyed. If the divine soul of the Taimo Lord escaped, he would be able to rebuild his physical body after 100 years of recuperation and return to his peak. At that time, the Taimo Lord would definitely seek revenge. He would come back and slaughter the people in the coastal cities. We can't let his divine soul escape. Tianxing's eyes were cold as he shouted anxiously. As a powerhouse at the soul-tempering stage, Xiao Han knew that the Taimo Lord would not die even if his physical body was destroyed. He had been prepared for this. He immediately went after the Taimo Lord and used the power of his spiritual territory to suppress the divine soul of the Taimo Lord. Sush. Invisible divine soul power came from all directions and gathered into an invisible giant hand, which grasped the divine soul of Lord Taimo. The dazzling white ball of divine soul stopped in midair and struggled desperately, but it could not escape. After Xiao Han went after the Taimo Lord, he immediately took out a dark green spiritual jade gourd. This spiritual jade gourd was one of his magic treasures and had many incredible uses. He used a secret technique to activate the power of the spiritual jade gourd and sucked the divine soul of the Taimo Lord into the gourd. The divine soul of the Taimo Lord struggled desperately and roared angrily, but it was useless. It was suppressed in the spiritual jade gourd and could only wait for death. At this point, the battle was finally over and the island returned to peace. Xiao Han put away the spiritual jade gourd and flew to Tianxing's side. He smiled with relief and said, Young Master Ji, we have finally taken care of this sea demon. It's all thanks to your help that I was able to capture it and resolve the crisis in the ancient Jade Bay. You saved millions of people in the coastal cities. You have made the greatest contribution in this operation. When I return to the Divine General's mansion, I will report this to the Emperor and ask him to reward you handsomely. Tianxing put away the broken sword and Huan Yu Bingjin. He waved at Xiao Han and said with a smile, Divine General, the reward is not important. I helped you get rid of the sea demon, but I have never thought of asking the Emperor for a reward. Xiao Han quickly nodded and laughed heartily. Of course, I understand. Young Master Ji, don't worry. I will definitely fulfill my promise to you. I still have to clean up the mess. When this matter is completely settled, I will personally accompany you to the imperial court of the water race. Since I have captured the divine soul of the Taimo Lord, I will also go to the imperial court of the water race to ask for an explanation. I will seek justice for the people. Tianxing nodded in agreement. That's good. Then we shall not delay this any longer. Divine General, please go and deal with the aftermath. Xiao Han nodded and cupped his hands. Young Master Ji, the sea demon army is still attacking the fleet. I will take my leave first. Then, he turned into a stream of light and flew into the sky. He quickly left the island and rushed towards the fleet. Ji Tianxing stayed on the island and was not in a hurry to leave. This was because the Golden Mountain King and the 800 warriors of the Earth Spirit clan were excavating the Taimo Lord's treasury in the depths of the earth. The Taimo Lord had occupied the ancient Jade Gulf for a month. Not only did he send out the Sea Demon army to loot the spiritual jades and pearls in the Gulf, he also slaughtered tens of thousands of people. Chapter 991. After Xiao Han left the island, Ji Tianxing stayed on the island and waited patiently. About half an hour later, a few cracks appeared on the ground of the ruins, and more than a dozen huge gaps appeared. Then the Golden Mountain King led the 800 warriors of the Earth Spirit clan and rushed out of those gaps. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In just 100 breaths, the Golden Mountain King and the 800 warriors gathered around Ji Tianxing and surrounded him with excitement. Everyone was filled with joy and excitement. They were discussing the conclusion and even cheering. Seeing their reactions, Ji Tianxing guessed that they must have reaped a bountiful harvest. The Golden Mountain King came to him with a flushed face. He handed over a space ring and reported, "Young Master Ji, we followed your instructions and found the treasury of the sea monster underground. You didn't see it, but the treasury was full of gold, silver, and jewelry. Spiritual jades and pearls were piled up like mountains. I have never seen so many treasures in my life. Precious jades of different attributes were piled up into 8 small mountains. Colorful spiritual pearls were piled up into 9 small mountains. Gold, silver, jewelry, and ores were piled up into 2 mountains, almost taking up half of the treasury. Time was of the essence, so I didn't have time to count the treasures. I put all the treasures into this space ring. Now I'll give you all the treasures. You can deal with them." Ji Tianxing reached out and took the interspatial ring. His spiritual sense invaded the ring to check, and he was immediately stunned. There were more than a dozen small mountains in the space ring, all of which were colorful jades and pearls. There were also a lot of gold, silver, and jewelry that Taimo King had plundered from the human race. The ores were dug out from the seabed by the sea monster army. The colorful jades were all natural jades that contained rich spiritual chi of heaven and earth. They could be turned into various kinds of spiritual jades after a little polishing. Those colorful pearls also contained rich 5 elemental energy and spiritual chi. They were all valuable treasures. An ordinary pearl was worth 50 spiritual stones, and a high-grade pearl was worth several hundred spiritual stones. Ji Tianxing checked all the treasures with his soul consciousness, but he couldn't estimate their value. He estimated that the value of those jades, pearls, and ores was at least 100 million spirit stones. Such a terrifying amount of wealth was equivalent to 20% of an ancient family's wealth. With these resources and wealth, he would definitely be able to create a top force that was second only to the ancient families. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel excited, and his blood boiled. After all, it was the first time in his life that he had so much wealth and resources. After a while, he calmed down and said to the Jinshan King, "Jinshan King, thank you for your hard work in this operation. It's not good to stay here for long. You guys go back to the Sword World first. I have to rush back to Blackrock City as soon as possible. Once I'm done with the inventory, I'll distribute the resources." After saying that, he took out the broken sword and cast a spell to open the world within the sword. Shwa! Blazing white light gushed out from the broken sword and condensed into a huge door of light. The Golden Mountain King led the 800 warriors into the light gate and returned to the peaceful soil city in the Sword World. After waiting for everyone to enter the Sword World, Ji Tianxing put away the broken sword and the interspatial ring and turned to leave the island. He flew into the sky and rushed toward the warship fleet at lightning speed to meet up with Jiku. On the way, he was filled with relief and joy. He thought to himself, "I helped Xiao Han kill the sea monsters this time because I wanted to make a deal with him and let him help me enter the imperial court of the water tribe. I didn't expect that not only did I help him capture the sea monsters and do him a favor, but I also unexpectedly received a piece of illusory feather ice gold and hundreds of millions of resources and treasures from the sea monsters. As the old saying goes, good will be rewarded with good, and evil will be repaid with evil. It was a wise decision to help Xiao Han eliminate the sea monsters. 15 minutes later, Ji Tianxing returned to the sea where the warship fleet was. The battle had already ended. The sea monster army had suffered heavy casualties. Hundreds of them were killed, and they had already fled. The sea within 100 miles was dyed red with the blood of the sea monsters. The air was filled with the thick smell of blood. The warship fleet had also paid a heavy price. More than a dozen warships were heavily damaged, and 2 warships were sunk by the sea monsters. Of the 2,000 elite soldiers, more than 200 died in battle, and more than 800 were injured. Xiao Han was cleaning up the mess. He was busy repairing the warships and comforting the injured soldiers with 3 generals and 20 commanders. Ji Ku was safe and sound, but her heart was always tense. She was worried about Ji Tianxing. After the 2 of them met up, she was finally able to put down the rock in her heart, and a smile appeared on her pretty face. "Big brother Tianxing, are you okay? Are you hurt?" She looked at Ji Tianxing with a face full of concern and asked. Ji Tianxing shook his head and smiled. "That sea monster can't do anything to me. Also, the divine general was there. It will definitely die." Ji Ku asked, "Have you killed that sea monster? I could hear it from afar just now. You guys were fighting on the island, and the sound could be heard from 100 miles away." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "I killed the sea monster's body with my sword. The divine general has already captured its soul. 2 days later, when this matter is settled, the divine general will take us to the imperial court of the water tribe." "Yes, that's great." Ji Ku smiled and nodded. She said excitedly, "Big brother Tianxing, you have made a great contribution this time. The imperial court will definitely reward you. Also, you have resolved the crisis of the ancient Jade Bay. The people of the coastal cities will also be grateful to you." The 2 of them chatted for a while and then returned to Xiao Han's warship to rest. 2 hours later, Xiao Han cleaned up the mess and repaired the warship fleet. He sent 3 generals with 3 warships and 300 elite soldiers to guard the ancient Jade Island. He then led the remaining warships and soldiers back to the Black Rock City. An hour later, the warship fleet returned to the harbor of the Black Rock City in triumph. The warships and soldiers stayed in the harbor to wait for orders. Xiao Han brought Ji Tianxing, Ji Ku and many commanders back to the divine general's estate. After returning, Ji Tianxing and Ji Ku stayed in the estate temporarily. Ji Ku meditated in the room to recover his strength. Ji Tianxing also needed to recover his strength and check the wealth in the interspatial ring. Xiao Han didn't have time to rest at all. He continued to deal with the aftermath and restore peace to the ancient Jade Bay as soon as possible. First, he sent people to put up notices in the coastal cities to let the people know that the sea demons had been killed, and the sea beast army had been defeated and fled. Peace had been restored in the ancient Jade Bay. The people and fishermen would soon be able to return to the bay to continue fishing and collecting pearls. Of course, he had clearly mentioned Ji Tianxing's name in the announcement, saying that it was only with Ji Tianxing's help that he had been able to successfully eliminate the sea demons. When the people of the coastal cities saw the contents of the notice, they were all overjoyed and ran to spread the news. Millions of commoners and fishermen were deeply grateful to Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing, praising them greatly. Ji Tianxing's name was also widely known among the people. He had become a hero that everyone knew. In the past, he was a famous emperor's son. Many young martial artists in the coastal cities were familiar with his deeds and worshipped him very much. But to the people, Ji Tianxing was far away in the middle ground. He was a legendary figure that they couldn't reach. But now it was different. Ji Tianxing had come to the Eastern Sea and solved the problem in the hearts of the people. Chapter 992. In just 2 days, Ji Tianxing's name had spread to every city along the sea. On the streets and alleys, all the clans and families were talking about how he had helped Divine General Wang Lin eliminate the sea demons. Some of the martial practitioners who worshipped him and knew of his identity and deeds were even more excited to tell others about his legendary deeds. In short, he had become the topic of discussion for countless people. His position in the hearts of the people was second only to Divine General Wang Lin. During these 2 days, he had been meditating and cultivating in the Divine General's estate. After his true essence and strength had recovered to their peak, He was busy counting the resources and wealth in his spatial ring. It took him an entire day to finish counting all the resources. Countless jade stones, ores, spirit energy pearls, gold, silver, and other treasures added up to more than 100 million spirit stones. It actually reached 200 million. If Ji Tianxing sold all these resources and exchanged them for the spirit stones and pills he needed, it would be enough for him to cultivate for at least 100 years. However, he would not do so. He took out all the spirit energy pearls and put them into his spatial ring. As for the jade stones, he only kept half of them. The other half of the jade stones and ores, as well as the gold, silver, and treasures, he left them all in his spatial ring and returned them to Golden Mountain King. The Jinshan King followed his orders and placed the piles of jade, ores, and gold, silver, and jewels into the ground around Peaceful Soil City. A small portion of the ores and jade stones could support the people of the Earth Spirit race for a dozen or so years. Most of the resources would be turned into or veins and reserves under the nurturing of the Earth Spirit race's craftsmen. These or veins and reserves would produce new ores and jade stones as time passed. They would be able to support the people of the Earth Spirit race for a long time. This way, the people of the Earth Spirit race would not have to worry about a lack of resources for many years to come. Previously, when Golden Mountain King led the people of the Earth Spirit race to live in the Sword World, countless people were filled with fear and anxiety. They were not afraid of an unfamiliar environment. They were just worried about their future. If they did not have enough land and/or veins, it would be very difficult for them to reproduce. Now, Ji Tianxing had given them more than 100 million spirit stones worth of ores and resources and solved their worries. The Golden Mountain King and all of the Earth Spirit people were overjoyed. Their hearts were filled with excitement and expectation. They were very grateful to Ji Tianxing. From now on, they would be able to live peacefully in the Sword World and be even more loyal to Ji Tianxing. After distributing the ores, Ji Tianxing began to read books in the Divine General's estate to learn more about the Eastern Sea Water Tribe. There were millions of books in the library of the Divine General's estate. Among them, there were tens of thousands of books about the East Sea Water Clan. Ji Tianxing stayed in Tibet for a night and used his spiritual senses to read tens of thousands of books. He had a clearer understanding of the East Sea Water Clan and the Water Clan Imperial Court. Early in the morning of the third day, he had just left Tibet when he bumped into Xiao Han. Xiao Hanxing hurriedly walked in front of him and said with a smile, "Young Master Ji, this seat was looking for you. I heard from the guards that you were hiding, so I hurried over." Ji Tianxing cupped his hands and asked, "Sir Divine General, why are you looking for me?" Xiao Han pointed at Tibet and said with a serious face, "Young Master Ji, let's go in and talk." Ji Tianxing nodded and followed him into Tibet. The two entered a secret room and Xiao Han said with a serious face, "Young Master Ji, this seat interrogated the Taimo King for 2 days and used all kinds of methods to get some information out of him." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked with interest, "What information did Sir Divine General get?" Xiao Han said in a low voice, "This seat originally thought that the sea monster was an expert from the Water Clan Imperial Court and that it took over the ancient Jade Bay under the orders of the Water Clan Imperial Court. This seat also wanted to take the sea monster's divine soul to the Water Clan Imperial Court to denounce them. I didn't expect that it really was from the Water Clan Imperial Court and was once a guard commander of the Imperial Court. However, it stole a priceless treasure from the Imperial Court of the Water Race and escaped with it. In order to avoid being hunted down by the Water Clan Imperial Court, it escaped to the ancient Jade Bay and gathered a large number of sea monsters and abandoned Water Clan people to take over the ancient Jade Bay and turn it into its own kingdom." Hearing this, Ji Tianxing had a bad premonition. He frowned and asked, "Sir Divine General, what was the priceless treasure that the Taimo King stole?" Xiao Han looked at him deeply and said, "According to the Taimo King himself, it was a priceless treasure called the Dreamy Feather Ice Gold. It could be used to forge primordial spirit-grade divine weapons. The Taimo King swallowed the Dreamy Feather Ice Gold and absorbed its power. That was how he became so strong and had the guts to take over the ancient Jade Bay and declare himself the king. When you killed the Taimo King's body with your sword, I saw with my own eyes that a fist-sized ice blue crystal fell from his body. If I'm not wrong, that ice blue crystal should be the dreamy feather ice gold. Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and looked at him with a faint smile. Chapter 993. 2 days passed quickly. Xiao Han took care of the aftermath and restored peace and stability to the ancient Jade Bay. On the morning of the 3rd day, he took Ji Tianxing and left the divine general's mansion, flying towards the endless eastern sea. The two traveled together, flying over the surface of the sea at lightning speed towards the depths of the eastern sea. Ji did not travel with Ji Tianxing. She entered the sword world of the broken sword and played around in the peaceful Earth City. To her, the sword world, the peaceful Earth City, and the thousands of Earth spirit race citizens were all unfamiliar and novel. She played around in the sword world for a few days before settling down in the peaceful Earth City to cultivate in seclusion. Unknowingly, 10 days passed by quickly. Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han traveled continuously for 10 days, flying for 300,000 miles before finally arriving at the depths of the Eastern Sea. During the journey, Ji Tianxing also experienced the beauty and vastness of the Eastern Sea. Below was the boundless azure sea, and above was the azure sky. The world was vast and boundless. Occasionally, flocks of seabirds would fly across the sky, leisurely spreading their wings and letting out crisp and distant cries. On the surface of the vast azure sea, giant whales and sharks that were dozens of meters long and even hundreds of meters long would jump out of the water, creating huge waves that were 30 meters tall. There were also many strange creatures of the water race that played on the surface of the sea, creating layers of ripples. In the vast sea, there were a few islands scattered around. Most of those islands were occupied by the water race, and there were many villages and houses built there. Ji Tianxing saw the scenery of the Eastern Sea and also experienced the culture of the water race. He also had some expectations for the imperial court of the water race, which he had never been to before. On the evening of the 11th day, Xiao Han stopped flying. The afterglow of the setting sun shone on the surface of the sea, causing the surface of the sea to sparkle with a faint golden color. "Young Master Ji, we're here." Xiao Han stood in the sky and looked down at the surface of the sea as he spoke to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing looked around and frowned in confusion. He asked, "Sir Divine General, have we arrived at the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm? There is nothing but the sea within a radius of several thousand miles. There is not even a single island. How can you be sure that this is the place?" Xiao Han smiled as he explained, "The Eastern Ocean is vast, and there's nothing to refer to. So it's indeed difficult to determine the location. However, the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm was huge. It was almost like an underwater world. I've been to the imperial court of the water race more than 10 times. I just need to remember the approximate location and distance, and it's not hard to find the entrance to the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, "I see." Xiao Han gestured for him to leave. "Let's go." After saying that, he descended from the sky into the sea. His figure turned into a blue light and dived into the depths of the sea. Ji Tianxing followed closely behind him. His entire body was wrapped in a layer of aqua blue light as he shuttled through the seawater at an extremely fast speed. Most of the cultivators who had reached the sky origin stage could use the power of the 5 elements to fly and walk on fire. The seawater in this area was very deep. Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing had dived nearly 10,000 meters into the sea, but they still hadn't reached the bottom. The bottom of the sea was pitch black and the seawater was bone-chillingly cold. The pressure was extremely high. If it was a normal sky origin stage cultivator, it would be difficult for them to move at a depth of 10,000 meters. However, Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing were very powerful. They weren't hindered by this, but their speed was slightly slower. After a while, the two of them had dived about 20,000 meters and finally reached the bottom of the sea. The bottom of the sea was pitch black and hard. There were reefs everywhere, coral reefs, and all kinds of seaweeds. There were also many strange-looking fish and aquatic creatures swimming around. Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing's bodies were surging with true origin light. In the pitch-black sea, they were like 2 huge balls of light. Countless fish, sea snakes, jellyfish, and special aquatic creatures were attracted by their light and swam towards them. After a short while, the two of them were surrounded by a huge school of fish and aquatic creatures. However, these fish and aquatic creatures were very weak. They couldn't threaten the two of them at all. Xiao Han stood on a pitch-black rock and looked at the school of fish around him expressionlessly. Suddenly, he saw a giant crab the size of a house in the crowded school of fish. It was an origin core stage aquatic creature. Therefore, he waved his hand and threw out an icy blue giant palm, capturing the giant crab. The giant crab was caught in the giant palm. It was struggling in fear and roaring angrily. Xiao Han used the power of his divine soul to suppress the crab's soul and make it quiet down. Then, he asked in a serious tone, "Where is the entrance to the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm? Bring me there." He was speaking in the language of the aquatic creatures. Of course, the giant crab could understand him. It quickly answered, "Senior, please spare my life. The nearest entrance is 300 miles to the southeast." Xiao Han nodded and loosened his grip on the ice-blue giant palm, releasing it. The giant crab was relieved. It quickly escaped from the school of fish and swam away without looking back. Chapter 994. Before entering the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm, Ji Tianxing had been imagining what this mysterious underwater world would look like. Now, he had finally entered the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm and seen this legendary underwater world with his own eyes. The scene in front of him was extremely beautiful and mysterious. It was completely beyond his imagination. He stepped on the ground. It was firm and firm, as if he was stepping on land. However, when he looked down, the ground was not land. It was a flat blue ice surface. It was as if he was stepping on a mirror. Through the almost transparent ice surface, he could clearly see the situation in the depths of the sea. There were densely packed coral reefs, dark green or dark green aquatic plants, colorful shells, sea snakes, and marine fish. Thousands of marine fish swam in schools. They swam slowly under the ice-blue surface. They were relaxed and calm. He looked up into the distance and saw a flat road ahead. All he could see was the ice-blue surface. 100 miles away, there was a huge and magnificent waterfall. It poured down from the sky and landed on the ice-blue surface. It formed a lake in a low-lying area. The waterfall was 100 miles tall and dozens of miles wide. It was definitely the biggest and most magnificent waterfall Ji Tianxing had ever seen in his life. Moreover, the waterfall falling from the sky was not only spectacular, but also magical. I didn't expect the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm to be such a mysterious place. This place is so beautiful that it doesn't belong to the mortal world. It's like a world of legends. Ji Tianxing was surprised and shocked. He couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Xiao Han had been here more than 10 times. He was already used to it. When he saw Ji Tianxing's reaction, he felt the same. He smiled and said, "Young Master Ji, are you shocked? When I first came to the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm, I was even more shocked than you. However, this is nothing. Look at the sky again." Ji Tianxing raised his head and looked at the sky. He saw a round moon hanging in the blue sky. The huge moon emitted a bright silver light, illuminating the entire 10,000 Dragons' strange realm. However, Xiao Han told him that it was not a real moon. It was built by the imperial court of the aquatics using billions of pearls and an ancient secret technique. In the 10,000 Dragons' wondrous realm, neither the sun nor the moon could be seen. Only the bright moon, that never set, illuminated the entire world. Other than Mingyu, Ji Tianxing saw another scene that shocked him even more. High up in the sky, there were numerous gigantic whales and fishes slowly flying through the clouds. Oh my God! We were so far away from the sky, and the giant whales and fish we saw were as huge as palaces. If we get closer, won't those whales and fish be as long as 10 miles and as huge as a mountain range? Ji Tianxing's eyes were fixed on the enormous whales and fishes, which looked mighty and intimidating. He exclaimed again. Xiao Han nodded and said in a solemn tone, "That's right, that's the largest water tribe in the East Sea. Each one of them is as long as 20 miles, like a moving mountain range. I once asked the water race's imperial emperor. Those giant whales and fish are actually dragon whales and dragon fish. According to the legends, they were born before the ancient times and were the protectors of the endless eastern sea. Dragon whales and dragonfish? Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and stared at those giant figures in the sky. He felt even more surprised. He had read a lot of books and knew many ancient legends and stories. Of course, he had heard of the legends of dragon whales and dragonfish. However, he never thought that the legendary dragon whales and dragonfish actually existed, and he had seen them with his own eyes. At this moment, Xiao Han pointed to the blue sky and explained to him, "The sky we saw in the 10,000 Dragons' wondrous realm was not the sky, it was still the East Sea. The 10,000 Dragons' wondrous realm is a barrier located deep inside the East Sea. It's like a small world. In layman's terms, the 10,000 Dragons' wondrous realm is like a transparent water ball in the middle of the East Sea. When we stay inside this giant water ball, under our feet is the bottom of the sea, and above our heads is still the sea." Ji Tianxing had already guessed this point. After hearing Xiao Han's explanation, instantly he realized. He suddenly remembered that when he was deep inside the buried Star Sea, he had seen a similar scene when he entered the ancient desolation ruins through the open heaven door. He could not help but think that the broken world was similar to the 10,000 Dragons' wondrous realm. Could there be a connection between the two? However, before he could think and analyze, a group of golden-armored guards rushed over from the ice field in front of him. Xiao Han interrupted his thoughts and said in a deep voice, "Young Master Ji, the Imperial Court of the Water Race has sensed the aura of my token and sent the palace guards to welcome you. Later, you will follow me to the Imperial Court to meet the Imperial Emperor of the Water Race. No matter what your goal or plan is, don't say it first. After I interrogate you, it will be easier for you to negotiate with the Imperial Court of the Water Race. Anyway, this is your first time in the Imperial Court of the Water Race. We will act according to the circumstances." Ji Tianxing knew that Xiao Han was helping him, so he nodded and said, "Thank you, Divine General." After a while, more than 30 golden-armored palace guards arrived in front of the two of them. This group of palace guards were all elites of the water race, and they all looked different. There were shrimp soldiers, crab generals, octopuses, jellyfish, and so on. Chapter 995. Yusan led more than 30 palace guards to escort Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing to the Imperial Court of the Water Race. They flew across the sky at lightning speed, crossing over the icy blue ground and countless lakes and rivers. They crossed over the towns where the water race gathered. Those towns were built on the icy blue ground and were surrounded by seawater. There were rivers and lakes everywhere in the cities. All the houses and buildings were made of water walls that were condensed into crystals. They looked crystal clear and looked like crystal palaces. It was very dreamy. After flying for about 1,000 miles, they arrived in front of a huge and majestic palace. This palace was 100 miles wide and was made up of more than 100 palaces. They were crystal clear and emitted an icy blue color. The palace was surrounded by a vast ocean. There were rows of trees wrapped in silver growing in the water. The trunks, branches, and leaves of these trees were all silver in color. They bore numerous golden fruits that flickered with specks of golden light. There were more than 100 guards in golden armor on both sides of the palace door. They looked mighty and dignified. The 100-meter-tall palace door was also made of ice crystals mixed with silver star sand. It was sturdy and looked gorgeous. This was the Imperial Court of the Water Race, the Golden Dragon Palace. Yusan led Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han through the door and into the main hall of the Golden Dragon Palace. There were ice crystal floors in the main hall. There were 8 ice crystal dragon pillars on both sides of the hall, supporting the dome of the palace. In the north, there was a throne that was studded with gems and pearls. It was very majestic. That was the throne of the Water Race Emperor, the Golden Dragon Emperor. Today was not the day for a meeting. The main hall was empty. There were only a dozen palace guards standing in the corners of the hall. Yusan asked Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han to wait in the main hall. He went to report to the Golden Dragon Emperor. Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han stood in the main hall. They waited patiently for about 15 minutes before Yusan returned to the main hall. There were 2 Dragon Tribe martial artists who entered the main hall with Yusan. The leader of the group was a middle-aged man who was over 10 feet tall, with a burly figure and a domineering aura. He wore a golden robe with a phoenix dragon pattern and a luxurious 9-star crown. His square face was upright and dignified. His eyes were deep and vast. There was a golden dragon horn on his forehead. He was the emperor of the water race, the famous Golden Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Tribe martial artist behind the Golden Dragon Emperor was a young man. He was also tall and muscular. He wore a purple robe. His face was resolute and his aura fierce. There was a golden dragon horn on his forehead. His skin was covered in dark golden dragon scales. He had reached the half-step soul refinement realm. He was not far from reaching the soul refinement realm. When Ji Tianxing saw his face clearly, he was stunned, and the look in his eyes changed slightly. The Golden Dragon Emperor. The Emperor of the Water Race. Ji Tianxing knew that Tai Yi was the crown prince of the imperial court of the water race, the eldest son of the Golden Dragon Emperor. But he did not expect that Tai Yi was not in the monarch palace, but had returned to the imperial court of the water race, and coincidentally met him. When he looked at Tai Yi also saw him. He also frowned and showed a surprised expression. The Golden Dragon Emperor strode over to the throne with his head held high and sat down on it. Tai Yi stood on the right side of the throne expressionlessly. Yusan stood on the left side of the Golden Dragon Emperor. Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing immediately put aside their distracting thoughts and looked at the Golden Dragon Emperor with solemn expressions. They bowed and said, "Greetings, Your Majesty." The Golden Dragon Emperor's expression remained calm as he appraised the 2 of them with a sharp gaze. He nodded slightly and said, "Please rise." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Ji Tianxing and Xiao Han thanked him in unison. The Golden Dragon Emperor looked at Ji Tianxing and asked Xiao Han, "Divine General Wang Lin, you've been to the imperial court more than 10 times. I know very well that you're here for nothing good. However, you actually brought a junior with you when you came to the imperial court this time. Who is he? Why did you bring him here personally?" Xiao Han cupped his hands and was about to introduce Ji Tianxing to the Golden Dragon Emperor. At this moment, Tai Yi, who was standing beside the Golden Dragon Emperor, revealed a playful smile and said, "Father, I know this man. He's no stranger to me." The Golden Dragon Emperor turned to look at him with a puzzled expression. "Tai Yi, you know him? Then tell me, who is he?" The smile on Tai Yi's face became even more playful. He looked straight at Ji Tianxing and said calmly, "This child's name is Ji Tianxing. He joined the Emperor's palace last year. In the past year, he has made a name for himself in Zhongzhou. He defeated the Duanmu clan and was made the Tianshan region lord by the imperial court. Later, he married Cloud Spirit Palace." Realization dawned on the Golden Dragon Emperor after Tai's introduction. He stared at Ji Tianxing with sparkling eyes. "Oh, I've heard that the human race has a genius of the ages. So it's you. I didn't expect the number 1 genius of the human race to come to the imperial court to see me. Interesting." The Golden Dragon Emperor had heard of Ji Tianxing's reputation but didn't take it to heart. To a primordial soul sovereign like him, no matter how monstrous a genius was, he was still a junior. He could crush him with a finger. After all, a primordial soul sovereign was already at the top of the continent and could look down on all living things. At this moment, Xiao Han cupped his hands towards the Golden Dragon Emperor and solemnly said, "Your Majesty, Ji Tianxing has come to see you for another matter. However, let's not talk about this for now. Now, I have something important to report to you, Your Majesty. It concerns the peace between the 2 races." The Golden Dragon Emperor wasn't interested in Ji Tianxing's purpose. He stared at Xiao Han and said, "All right, I was just about to ask you something. Tell me the truth." Xiao Han's expression was serious. Just over a month ago, a sea demon broke into ancient Jade Bay and took over ancient Jade Island. It destroyed dozens of villages and thousands of fishing boats. 80,000 of our people died and more than 100,000 lost their homes. In the end, Ji Tianxing helped me get rid of the sea demon and defeated the sea beast army. Finally, the crisis of ancient Jade Bay was resolved. After the incident, I found out that the sea demon was a grand ink octopus. It was the commander of the guards of the imperial court. May I ask your majesty, how do you explain this matter? Xiao Han took out a jade slip from his spatial ring and handed it to Yu San, who handed it to the Golden Dragon Emperor. The jade slip recorded all the deaths of the human race, the destroyed fishing boats, and the various losses suffered by the human race. Hearing this, the Golden Dragon Emperor and Tai Yi looked at each other. Their expressions became serious. The Golden Dragon Emperor took the jade slip from Yu San's hand. After he read the contents of the jade slip with his soul, his expression became even uglier. He clenched his fists and his eyes burned with anger. His body emitted a cold, murderous intent. Chapter 996. The Golden Dragon Emperor was extremely shrewd and had always been as calm as a mountain. It was rare for him to get angry like this. Part of the reason why he was so angry was because he did it deliberately for Xiao Han to see. It was because it represented his attitude towards this matter. Although the Water Clan dominated the endless Eastern Sea, they had never interacted with the other clans on the mainland since ancient times. They had always looked on coldly from the sidelines. Even the Demon Clan that wreaked havoc in the world would not become enemies with the Water Clan and had never invaded the Eastern Sea. However, as the territories of the Water Clan and the Human Clan were connected, there were too many interactions between the two clans. Regardless of how arrogant and cold-blooded the Water Clan were, they would not become enemies with the Human Clan. After all, the Human Clan had already become the overlord of the mainland and had countless elite warriors protecting them. The two clans had already drawn a clear boundary between their territories and set up a peaceful and friendly agreement to not invade each other. For thousands of years, the occasional conflicts and grudges between the two clans would be resolved quickly. The way to resolve the grudges and appease the conflicts was to cede territory and pay compensation to keep the peace. For example, the ancient Jade Gulf was indeed the territory of the Water Clan during the ancient times. However, 2,000 years ago, the elite warriors of the Water Clan had invaded the territory of the Human Clan and massacred countless people. In order to not start a war with the Human Clan and appease the anger of the Imperial Court, the Water Clan ceded the ancient Jade Gulf to the Human Clan. In the recent thousands of years, similar incidents often occurred. As time passed, most of the rich and fertile bays along the coast were given to the Human Clan as compensation. During the ancient times, the territory between the two clans was separated by the coastline. Currently, the territory boundary had become the sea within 10,000 miles of the coast. The shallow sea area was the territory of the Human Clan and only the deep sea area was the territory of the Water Clan. The last time there was a conflict between the two clans was 80 years ago. After 80 years of peace, the Taimo king had invaded the ancient Jade Gulf and massacred the people of the Human Clan. Since Divine General Wang Lin had come to denounce him, the Golden Dragon Emperor must think of a way to settle this matter since he could not fall out with the Imperial Court. The way to resolve the conflict was to cede territory and pay compensation. How could he not be angry? After a moment, he gradually calmed down and explained to Divine General Wang Lin, "Divine General Wang Lin, please tell the Imperial Emperor of the Human Clan on my behalf that it was indeed the negligence of the Water Clan. It was this emperor's lax supervision that led to this tragedy. This emperor deeply apologizes for this. That grand ink octopus is indeed the guard commander of our clan's imperial court. It has been loyal to its duty for decades. However, it used its status and power to allow its relatives to bully the other aquatic creatures. The imperial court punished its relatives according to the law, and I also punished it heavily, causing it to harbor hatred in its heart. It planned for 2 years, stole a secret treasure of our race, betrayed the imperial court, and escaped from the 10,000 Dragons' strange realm." The Golden Dragon Emperor explained the whole story to Xiao Han. In fact, Xiao Han had interrogated Taimo Wang and already knew the truth. After the Golden Dragon Emperor finished his explanation, he turned to Xiao Han and asked, "Divine General Wang Lin, the imperial court failed to capture Taimo King in time, which led to this disaster. Since you've already killed it and resolved the ancient Jade Base crisis, it can be considered a blessing in disguise. In order to express my apology, I am willing to offer enough sincerity to compensate the human imperial court and give an explanation to those innocent people who died in vain. As for the specific compensation, this emperor will discuss it with you later. What do you think? Seeing the Golden Dragon Emperor's attitude, Xiao Han's goal was achieved. He quickly nodded and said, "All right, thank you for your understanding, Your Majesty. This seat will definitely pass on your message to the Emperor." The Golden Dragon Emperor nodded slightly and said, "This matter is settled. This Emperor will give you and the human imperial court a satisfactory explanation. Now, please return the secret treasure to this Emperor, Divine General Wang Lin. That treasure originally belonged to our imperial court." Xiao Han frowned and asked, "Your Majesty, please forgive this seat's stupidity, but this seat does not understand what treasure you are talking about. What is it?" The Golden Dragon Emperor also frowned and looked at him sternly. He explained, "It's a piece of illusory feather ice gold, a priceless treasure. It's a fist-sized ice blue crystal." Xiao Han shook his head and said naturally, "My apologies, Your Majesty. This seat and Ji Tianxing risked our lives to fight the great Ink King for a long time before we killed its body. The battle was intense and we did not see any illusory feather ice gold, nor do we recognize it." The Golden Dragon Emperor looked at him sharply and asked, "Divine General Wang Lin, is this true?" "Absolutely." Xiao Han replied with a solemn expression as he looked directly into the eyes of the Golden Dragon Emperor without the slightest hint of guilt or evasion. Ji Tianxing looked on silently from the side. He was grateful to Xiao Han for helping him hide the truth, but he also admired Xiao Han's acting skills. The Golden Dragon Emperor was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right, since you did not find the illusory feather ice gold, this matter is over. This Emperor only has one request, and that is to ask Divine General Wang Lin to return the soul of the great Ink King. It has committed such a crime, and this Emperor must punish it according to the laws of the water race as a warning to others." "Of course. This seat came to see you this time to hand it over to you." Xiao Han nodded and took out the spirit jade gourd from his space ring and handed it to Yusan. Yusan took the spirit jade gourd and respectfully handed it to the Golden Dragon Emperor. After the Golden Dragon Emperor accepted the spirit jade gourd, he looked at Xiao Han and Ji Tianxing and said, "Xiao Han, we've finished talking about official matters. Now it's time to talk about private matters. Ji Tianxing, why have you come with Divine General Wang Lin to see this Emperor?" Before Ji Tianxing could answer, Xiao Han sent him a secret message and said, "Young Master Ji, if you have any requests or motives, please tell the Golden Dragon Emperor. The great Ink King's rebellion has caused the imperial court of the water race to be in the wrong. The Golden Dragon Emperor will not dare to refuse you, especially since this seat has not discussed the matter of compensation with him. He will not dare to offend you, lest this seat takes advantage of him. Thank you for your help, Divine General. I will remember this." Ji Tianxing transmitted his thanks to Xiao Han. Then he saluted the Golden Dragon Emperor and said, "Your Majesty, I came to the Imperial Court of the Water Race to ask for your help. I want to ask for information." The Golden Dragon Emperor thought that Ji Tianxing would take this opportunity to extort money. Hearing that he was only here to ask for information, he relaxed and smiled. "What information? As long as this Emperor knows, I will." However, before he could finish speaking, Tai smiled and said, "Father, you are the Emperor of our race. You have many things to attend to every day. Right now, you should be discussing important matters with Divine General Wang Lin. Young Master Ji and I are both imperial princes. We have known each other for a long time and are not strangers. If he wants information, I will answer it for him." The Golden Dragon Emperor immediately agreed. He smiled and said, "Tai Yi is right. Then I will let you entertain Ji Tianxing. The two of you can talk." He led him out of the hall and into the depths of the imperial court. Half an hour later, the two passed through layers of corridors and several ice crystal palaces. They entered an elegant courtyard surrounded by clear water. "Young Master Ji, this is the Jade Wave Courtyard. You can stay here for the next few days. Tai walked into the Jade Wave Courtyard and introduced him. This June has arranged more than 20 guards and maids for you. Those maids are all beautiful mermaids of the mermaid race. If you're lonely, you can enjoy them to your heart's content. Then he clapped his hands. The few doors around the courtyard were opened, and immediately 12 beautiful mermaids walked out of them. These mermaids all had human bodies, but below their waists was a fishtail with red scales. They had golden hair and azure eyes. Their skin was as soft as milk and as smooth as jade. All of them were pure and beautiful. The 12 mermaids stood in the courtyard and bowed respectfully to Tai. "Greetings, Your Highness." Tai pointed at Ji Tianxing and ordered expressionlessly, "This is this June's friend, Imperial Prince Ji Tianxing. You must serve him well, no matter what request he has." Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing frowned and waved his hand. "Tai, there's no need. Tell them to leave." Tai frowned and asked with a faint smile, "What's wrong? Young Master Ji is not satisfied? Do you think these mermaids are not beautiful enough?" "Ha, this June knows very well that the rich and powerful families of Central State are all obsessed with mermaids. Many people would spend all their wealth just to get close to them." Ji Tianxing frowned again and said with a serious expression, "Tai, are you insulting me? You know I'm married. Yun Yao is my wife." Tai saw that he was angry and showed signs of flaring up, so he quickly apologized with a smile. "I'm sorry, young Master Ji. Please don't be angry. This June didn't mean to offend you. Since you don't like them, this June will tell them to leave." With that, he waved his hand and ordered the 12 mermaids to leave. Then, he took out a treasure box from his space ring and handed it to Ji Tianxing. "Young Master Ji, today is your first time in our imperial court. This June should give you a gift as a souvenir." Seeing that Ji Tianxing was about to wave his hand to reject the gift, he added, "Young Master Ji, don't reject it yet. This is the aquatics etiquette. The gift isn't too expensive, so please accept it." Ji Tianxing frowned and thought to himself, Tai has always been dissatisfied with me. Why is he suddenly so enthusiastic? Not only is he giving me beauties, but he also wants to give me a gift? As he thought, he took the treasure box. When he opened it, he saw that there were 2 gemstones the size of dates. One was an ice blue gemstone. It was the precious ice heart jade pill. The other was a dark gold gemstone. It was the priceless gold essence pearl. These 2 gemstones could be used to forge soul-grade magic treasures. They were worth at least 2 million spirit stones. It was definitely a great fortune. Any other soul refinement realm cultivator would be tempted by it. However, Ji Tianxing closed the treasure box and returned it to Tai. "Tai, you have the water tribe's rules. I also have the human tribe's principles. As the saying goes, one should not accept a reward without any effort. I will not accept your gift for no reason. Please take it back. Also, I don't mind telling you that I only want the boundless stone. I don't care about any other treasures." Tai was stunned for a moment. Then, he silently took back the treasure box and put it into his space ring. He stared at Ji Tianxing. A strange look flashed through his eyes. He asked in a low voice, "Young Master Ji, can you tell this June, what do you want the boundless stone for?" Ji Tianxing said calmly, "To save someone." Tai did not think much of it. He subconsciously shook his head and said, "That's impossible. How can the boundless stone have such an effect?" Chapter 998. Tai, haven't you heard of the boundless stone? How can you be so sure that it can't save lives? Ji Tianxing looked at Tai with a playful smile and asked in a cold tone. Tai knew that he had misspoken, so he coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. His gaze was somewhat evasive. "I was just guessing. The boundless stone sounds like a gem, not a medicinal ingredient. How can it save lives?" Ji Tianxing waved his hand and sneered. "Enough, Tai. You don't have to put on an act with me. I'm not interested in wasting my time with you. Tell me, where can I find the boundless stone? Does the Imperial Treasury have it? If so, let's make a deal." Tai shook his head and explained, "Young Master Ji, The boundless stone is a top-tier material even rarer than illusory feather ice gold. It can be used to refine divine artifacts. If it's illusory feather ice gold, the imperial treasury has a few pieces. But the boundless stone is too rare. It's a rare treasure that can't be found or sought. I'm sorry, but the imperial treasury doesn't have it either. Ji Tianxing frowned at his explanation. His gaze turned grave, and his heart filled with disappointment. In that case, I won't disturb you any further. I'll leave with the Divine General after he finishes his discussion with His Majesty the Dragon Emperor. Tai frowned and thought for a moment, then said seriously, "Then stay here for now. Divine General Wang Lin and Imperial Father are discussing important matters. They won't be able to reach a conclusion in a day. I'll help you think of a way to find the boundless stone." With that, Tai bid farewell and left. Ji Tianxing stayed in the Jade Wave courtyard alone, living in a luxurious and spacious room. He sat on a bed carved from ice and looked down at the ground. He could see countless oddly shaped fish and coral reefs in the dim light of the ocean floor. He looked up at the sky and saw layers of white clouds in the azure blue sky. There were also a few mountain-sized dragon whales and leviathans slowly flying across the sky. Such a dreamy and illusory world in the water was truly like a fairy tale world, mesmerizing and intoxicating. But he was worried about the boundless stone. He couldn't feel happy about it. A day passed quickly. Ji Tianxing meditated in his room for an entire day. His mental state and power were restored to their peak. He no longer used pills and spirit stones to recover his true essence. Instead, he tried to absorb the energy from the spiritual chi pearl. The result was beyond his expectations. A white pearl the size of a date pit contained several times more spiritual energy than a spirit stone, and it was even purer. The next morning, he ended his meditation. After asking the guards of the water tribe, he learned that Xiao Han was still in a meeting with the Golden Dragon Emperor and had yet to decide on how to compensate him. Not long after, Tai Yi arrived at Jade Wave Courtyard, looking for him with a smile. When the two of them met in the living room, Tai said impatiently, "Ji Tianxing, I have already asked around about the boundless stone for you. Although we don't have it in our imperial court's treasury, in the past 1,000 years, our race's experts have found 3 pieces of boundless stone. I have a map here that records the location of the boundless stone." Hearing his words, Ji Tianxing's flame of hope, which was about to be extinguished, was immediately rekindled. He looked at Tai with shining eyes and asked hopefully, "Where can I find it? Where's the map? Can you show it to me?" Tai raised his eyebrows and looked at him expressionlessly. His gaze was a little strange. Ji Tianxing was stunned. He quickly said, "Tai, the boundless stone is very important to me. As long as you tell me where it is, I will remember your favor and give you a satisfactory price." Tai shook his head and said playfully, "Ji Tianxing, you don't understand me at all. I don't need your favor, and I don't care what price you offer. I don't care about your meager wealth." Ji Tianxing saw the change in Tai's attitude. He frowned and asked in a low voice, "Then what do you want?" Tai grinned and said with a cold sneer, "It's very simple. You just need to fight with me. If you can beat me, I will give you the map and the clue. If you can't beat me, you have to accept your loss and be my guard for a year." Hearing his words, Ji Tianxing immediately sneered, "Ha, you've finally revealed your foxtail? Is this what you want?" Tai didn't deny it. He said expressionlessly, "In the past year, your name has shaken the world. You are known as the first genius of the human race, especially after you were taken in as a disciple by God Master Heiyu. You have become the noblest first prince in the imperial palace. However, this monarch will let you know that this monarch is fully deserving of the title of first prince in the monarch mansion. You have reached the 9th level of Sky Origin stage. Don't tell me you don't even have the courage to fight with me." Ji Tianxing understood what he was thinking. His smile became even more playful as he said in a mocking tone, "Hee, you're jealous because I stole your limelight, so you want to use this opportunity to fight with me to clear your name?" Tai didn't deny it. He felt awkward and embarrassed. He said seriously, "So what? Cultivators in the world work hard to cultivate for fame and fortune, don't they? I don't do it for profit. I do it for fame. I defeat my opponent with strength. I challenge you fair and square. Is that wrong? Ji Tianxing nodded and said in a deep voice, That's right. At least you said it fair and square. You didn't use dirty tricks to get what you want. Since you are jealous of my fame and fortune, it has become a sore point in your heart. I will do as you wish. I will fight with you. Remember what you said just now. You have to accept your loss. The cultivation of martial arts was to be free and unhindered, to do as one pleased. Especially for martial arts geniuses. Once there was a knot in one's heart that could not be untied, it would become a shackle that would affect one's cultivation. In the past year, Tai had witnessed Ji Tianxing's rapid rise in the imperial palace. His strength was on par with Tai's, and his fame had overshadowed Tai's. A knot had formed in Tai's heart. He couldn't get rid of it. He had been holding it in and couldn't concentrate. Because of this, he had been stuck in the half-step soul refining stage for a long time. He knew that Ji Tianxing was looking for the boundless stone. He wanted to use this opportunity to force Ji Tianxing to fight with him. No matter if he won or lost, at least he would be able to resolve this knot in his heart. This would be of great benefit to his martial arts cultivation. Now that Ji Tianxing had accepted his challenge, he heaved a sigh of relief. His face was full of smiles. He shouted excitedly, Good. Ji Tianxing, you are really straightforward. I thank you for your help. Chapter 999. Tai Yi had been waiting for this day for a long time. He couldn't wait any longer. As soon as Ji Tianxing agreed, he immediately wanted to drag Ji Tianxing to the martial arts field to fight. Ji Tianxing, let's not waste any more time. Let's go to the martial arts field to see who's better. As he spoke, Tai Yi walked to the door of the courtyard. Ji Tianxing didn't move. He looked at him with a faint smile and asked in a playful tone, Tai Yi, there are too many people in the martial arts field. Are you sure you want to fight there? Let me give you a piece of advice. Let's find a remote place with no one around. No matter who wins or loses, only you and I will know. This is better for both of us. Tai Yi suddenly stopped and turned to look at him. He grinned coldly and said, What? We haven't even started fighting and you're already afraid? How, when we fight in the martial arts field, only the people of the water race and the imperial guards will be watching. They don't even know you. Even if you lose, there's nothing to be ashamed of. After all, I'm the #1 genius of the water race. In their eyes, I'm the #1 genius of the continent. It's normal for you to lose to me. Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianxing's smile became more playful. Tai Yi, you're too confident. I hope you can still be so confident in the martial arts field later. Tai Yi understood the meaning in his words, but he didn't take it to heart. Instead, his arrogance was stimulated. He smiled more confidently and said, Ji Tianxing, it's useless for you to say anything now. No matter how much nonsense you say, you can't hide your fear and cowardice. Since you've already agreed, fight with me fair and square. Don't be a coward and delay. You'll only make me look down on you. His confidence and arrogance made Ji Tianxing completely speechless. Ji Tianxing didn't want to waste any more time. He smiled coldly and said, All right, since you insist on fighting in the martial arts field, I'll do as you wish. Let's go. Tai Yi waved his sleeve and stepped out of Jade Wave Courtyard with anticipation. He rushed to the martial arts field. Ji Tianxing followed behind him, leaving the Jade Wave Courtyard and rushing to the martial arts practice field. The training field was located in the depths of the imperial court. It was a square with a radius of 1,000 meters, surrounded by ice crystal palaces. It was filled with officials and relatives of the imperial court, as well as many guards. This square was like an arena, and it had long been set up with an extremely powerful defensive formation. Even if a soul refinement realm cultivator were to fight in the arena, they wouldn't be able to destroy the formation, let alone endanger the surrounding palaces. When Tai Yi rushed to the training field, the square was surrounded by thousands of Water Clan experts and guards, as well as many relatives of the imperial court. Chapter 1000. In a short span of 100 breaths, more than 2,000 warriors of the water race had gathered around the arena. These people were the guards, maids, and dependents of the imperial court of the water race. They had all heard the news and came to watch the show. Everyone looked excitedly at Tai Yi in the arena. They discussed him passionately and cheered excitedly from time to time. In recent years, Tai Yi had spent most of his time in the imperial residence of the Central Plains. He rarely returned to the imperial court of the water race. Everyone had not seen him fight for many years. That was why they were so excited and expectant. Tai Yi also enjoyed the feeling of being the moon surrounded by stars. He enjoyed the feeling of being admired by everyone. His blood was ignited. He exuded a confident and domineering fighting spirit. He looked at Ji Tianxing with shining eyes and shouted with dignity, "Ji Tianxing, come and fight with me." Ji Tianxing looked at him calmly. The corners of his mouth curled up as he slowly walked towards the arena. He was neither angry nor excited. He was as calm as usual. Even his steps were unusually steady. The 3,000 warriors of the water race were even more disappointed when they saw him like this. They discussed and mocked him. However, Ji Tianxing turned a blind eye to those water tribe warriors. He stepped onto the arena and stood 100 meters away from Tai Yi. Tai Yi twisted his neck and cracked his knuckles. His dragon scales and the dragon horns on his forehead all glowed with golden light. His fighting spirit was boiling. He asked Ji Tianxing in a loud voice, "Ji Tianxing, I have waited for this day for a long time. Today, I can finally get my wish and resolve the knot in my heart. Why do you look so calm and unperturbed? Did you already know the result? That you will lose without a doubt? Is that why you are so listless?" Ji Tianxing looked at him and said calmly, "Only by challenging someone stronger can my blood and fighting spirit be aroused, just like you are now. Unfortunately, you are no match for me. The result is already decided. What is there to be excited about?" His voice was not loud, but it contained great confidence and certainty. It spread clearly to the entire arena. All of a sudden, Tai Yi froze and furrowed his brows. More than 3,000 warriors of the water tribe around the arena were also in an uproar, shouting and laughing. Is this kid crazy? How dare he be so arrogant? Too arrogant. Who did he think he was? How dare you look down on His Highness? His Highness Tai Yi is not only the #1 genius of the water tribe, but also the #1 genius of the continent. He is invincible among his peers. Everyone just wait for a good show. This kid has already angered His Highness Tai Yi. He will be beaten into a salted fish later. Your Highness Tai Yi, quickly defeat him and trample on him. Let him see the power of our water tribe. Many cultivators were stirred up, raising their arms and cheering loudly. Tai Yi had also accumulated his will to fight, and his aura had reached its peak. With a serious face, he shouted, "Ji Tianxing, cut the crap. Only the results will prove who is the #1 emperor's son and who is the true #1 genius." As soon as he finished speaking, golden light surged between his palms, and a blue halberd appeared. This was a high-grade soul-level Dharma treasure called the 9 Songs Halberd. It was a Dharma treasure that the Golden Dragon Emperor had spent 3 years refining for him. The mysterious and ancient halberd shone with a blue light, exuding a bone-chilling coldness. It contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. Tai Yi put his left hand behind his back and held the 9 Songs halberd in his right hand. He pointed proudly at Ji Tianxing and shouted, "Ji Tianxing, you are a guest from afar. Please make the first move." Ji Tianxing did not bother with pleasantries. He immediately activated his mighty true core, and his will to fight surged. He knew very well that Tai Yi was a half-step soul cultivation realm genius and a member of the powerful Golden Dragon tribe. His combat strength was no weaker than a LV2 soul cultivation realm cultivator. Therefore, he would not let his guard down, and there was no need for him to use ordinary moves to test the waters. He used his most powerful move as soon as he attacked. Sky-burning palm. He slowly raised his left arm and poured out endless crimson fire, making his arm and palm as red as magma. With a low shout, endless crimson fire surged out of his left palm, condensing into a giant palm as large as a palace that covered the sky and slammed toward Tai. In that instant, the enormous flaming palm that blotted out the sky enveloped the entire arena. The arena within 1,000 meters was covered by the giant palm, turning into a boundless sea of fire. More than 3,000 warriors of the water tribe who were surrounding the arena suddenly showed a horrified look. They were so scared that they retreated in a hurry. The arena was protected by a soul-level array, so the shockwaves of the battle would not spread outside the arena. However, many water tribe martial artists hated fire and feared the power of fire. How could they not be afraid when they saw the fire and the giant palm that covered the sky? Of the 5 elements, water countered fire. However, when the power of fire was strong enough, it could counter water. When the flaming palm slammed down, Tai Yi's expression changed drastically. His eyes flashed with intense shock and fear. Damn it! Ji Tianxing has just reached the 9th level of Sky Origin stage. How can he be so powerful? He is no weaker than me. As the thought flashed through his mind, he waved the 9 songs war halberd without hesitation. The blue light covered the sky and condensed into a giant ice shield.